Supervisor Williams,
Here.
Supervisor Kuntz, Supervisor Harris,
Here.
Supervisor Jesse,
Here.
Supervisor Kimbrough.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll move to the approval of the consent agenda. I have a couple of changes, additions to our agenda that I'll just read for everyone. We will have a discussion regarding personal property tax following the constitutional officer's report. We have in the agency and staff reports, we're going to discuss the Heritage Committee, and Dave Kretz will speak to the Wake Landing survey. And under regular agenda items, we have a late submission for the Heritage Trail. And we also have a request for a closed session, which we'll schedule sometime around 4:45. Those are all the changes to the agenda that I have, that I am requesting. Any other changes from anyone? Okay. Then we can move to open the meeting with our prayer from Supervisor Jesse, please.
Williams. Williams. You can.
I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor Williams.
I'm with it. Let us all pray. Oh, Father God, we come once again, Father. Thank you for this day. Thank you once again to lead us to this place, this building. Now, Father, go in our hearts and minds that we can do what's right, and for your name's sake, teach us to get along one with another, to treat each other like we ask someone to treat us. In Jesus' name, we all do pray. Amen.
Amen. And also, Anne Marie, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Oh, you're here. Yeah. You're in the right seat.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
Thank you. You slipping me the old seat changing routine here. I'm having a hard time keeping up, but I'll catch up. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move. I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Jesse. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kuntz, Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, I will open the floor for public comment. I will remind participants that you will be given, you will please provide your name and address for the record. You'll be given one opportunity to speak. All comments or remarks will be addressed to the Board of Supervisors, not the audience. And you will be allowed 3 minutes each. If you are speaking for a group of 4 or more individuals, let us know and we'll go over the details about that. Okay, I'll open the floor for public comment. We have,
I have one public speaker card, Deborah Miller, Pine Top.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Deborah Miller. I reside at 36 Wild Goose Drive, Hardyville in Pine Top District. I apologize for appearing for you in front of you 2 months in a row, but I have a couple of questions that I would like to have addressed at some point in the meeting today. So I'm not here to talk about the personal property taxes that have accelerated about 90% in the last 3 years, according to the treasurer's report that's on page 44 of your agenda. What I am here to talk about is I'm pleased to see that Mr. Beam and also Ken Turner from the Timmons Group have prepared a report, and also Charlie, in addition, some of the other items that are planned projects in the county. I think that the report that's provided is a really good blueprint of what the sewer project is going to look like, including both the cost and the timelines for the different phases. And I think it's going to be really beneficial to you as the decision makers of the county, and also allow the citizens to have a better understanding of the overall project. I do have 3 questions that I hope will be addressed in today's presentation after reading the agenda, and I don't know whether Charlie will address them or Mr. Turner. The first is, could we get an explanation regarding the $4.2 million that's listed for the 1,000 grinder pumps? That figure was included in both the construction cost of $23,750,000 for Deltaville JD9 and separately in the ARPA grant request for $4.2 million on pages 92 and 93. So my question is that the same item, or do you expect the cost for those 1,000 pumps to be $8.5 million? Might be a simple explanation that I'm just missing. The second question on page 93, the county has applied for $25 million in DEQ ARPA funds, grants, I should say, and $19 million in DEQ loans for an estimated $41 million for the overall project. At what point in the process will the county know whether the grants will be approved and at what amounts? And will that issue be resolved before construction actually begins? Because obviously it's a big difference in whether the county citizens are responsible for $41 million or whether they are responsible for $19 million. And finally, in Timmons Group's presentation in August 22, there was much discussion about, is that my time? About the OPCC, the opinion of probable construction cost. I won't go through the whole definition. I didn't see that statement in Timmons' presentations for today. Does it still apply? And thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
That's all the submissions I have.
Others who wish to speak? Yes, Mr. Jackson.
Robert Jackson, Urbana. Good afternoon, board members and others. Accountable of a person, organization, institution required or expected to justify actions or decisions responsible. This one word applies to each one of you sitting in those chairs, which brings me to 2 issues: loans and water/sewer. First, loans. I'm willing to bet that none of you sitting in those chairs know the exact number of outstanding loans this county has and the payoff amount in the year. As a supervisor, this sort of information would be very incredible, significant to have at my fingertips. It would help me as a supervisor to see where this county stands when it comes to making a decision on loans. In my opinion, this type of information should be printed in the newspaper at least twice a year to let taxpayers know what's going on in the county. In August, the Board of Supervisors meeting, Supervisor Kuntz suggested documents showing projects costs. This was an excellent idea. Not sure how far that went. Each phase that a project goes through should show the cost of that phase until the completion of that project. I'm not sure why there's such so secretive about that information unless there is something to cover up or hide. With all the ongoing and planned projects, there need to be more transparency in information provided to the citizens in this county. On loans, the last thing I want to say is please don't let anyone or anybody sitting at that table persuade you to vote in a rush, no matter how good a deal it may sound, without first doing your own research. I witnessed this so many times since I have been attending these meetings. Next, water/sewer. Will water and sewer attract businesses to the county? Not in my lifetime, and many others in this county. We did have one business that wanted to come here, but you, the board, voted that down. If a business wanted to come to this county and like a certain location to build, why would this board vote that down? I thought the main purpose of the water and sewers was to bring businesses here, but obviously not. It is because some or most of you want to keep this county as rural as possible, which keeps putting more and more burden on taxpayers. I have said this before and will continue to say this. The main objective of this project was to satisfy the desperate need of water and sewer to the richest district in this county, which is Deltaville. In closing, I would like to say, why would any business who did their research want to come to this county in which the population is declining and business is closing? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Anyone else wish to address the board? Hello, Ms. Moore.
Afternoon, how are you?
Good.
I know it's on the consent agenda, but I'm going to speak my piece. My name is Dawn Moore. I live in Urbana, Virginia. When the tax bills came out, I guess my phone was ringing before yours because I had 20 calls before I called the Board of Supervisor member, and he hadn't had any. My phone keeps ringing off the hook. I understand what happened. We know what happened, but why is our board trying to be reactive instead of proactive? Now, I went through and I went to 26 localities and I pulled them all up. I went back to the Census Bureau and I pulled up all of the census. We only compare with Essex, Middlesex, and Lancaster with a population in the 10,000 range. Because according to the Census Bureau, Middlesex, as of July 1st, 2021, had 10,781 people. Lancaster had 10,928, and Essex had 10,573. I have friends in both localities, but I can't compare Middlesex to either locality. They already have infrastructure. They have business. They have businesses opening where we have businesses closing. You're putting more and more of a tax burden on us people. And I know that everybody thinks this is a good retirement community, but retirees lived on a fixed income in most parts of this county. Some of them don't have internet. They cannot go on the website and they cannot fill out any piece of paper you want them to. Some don't have the service for the internet, never mind the means to do it. You needed to be proactive on this and not reactive. I have a friend that lives in Essex. She also lives in the town, so she's double taxed. Her car is newer than mine. She paid $9 last year and $7 this year. Yes. They gave a tax relief before the bills even came out. And come to find out, in this folder, I went to all 27 of these counties or 25 of these counties, and 90% of them did a tax relief before the tax bills came out because the boards were notified. And from my understanding, you all were notified months before the bills came out. Now, if I'm wrong about that, then I have to take that back to the tax office. But you all were notified what J.D. Powers was doing, and you all did not move on it. I find that to be poor representation of our board members. You know what kind of economic imbalance we are living in. Our county is not growing. Our small businesses are mom and pops who are struggling to survive, but you continuously increase our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Anyone else wish to address the board? I'll close public comment period. Next, we have constitutional officers. The treasurer is report only, and the treasurer's report has been revised. There were a couple of typos where digits went into the wrong place. And is the revised report published on the website?
Submitted or revised. I have a handful. I'll put at the podium right now.
Okay, so the revised report, Ms. Lewis will place at the podium if anybody would like to look at that. Basically, there were pretty obvious typos. I think that there was 10 million instead of 3 million or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they were. Anyway, that's been revised. Is there any questions or discussion from the board for our treasurer? Okay. Then next up is the Commissioner of the Revenue. Welcome, May.
Good afternoon. Before we go into my report, I just have something that I wrote down that I'd like to be able to say on the record, if that's possible.
Of course.
So firstly, I'd like to acknowledge my deputies. They've been rock solid in light of everything we've had to deal with since personal property bills that went out. We've been yelled at, cursed at, called incompetent, completely badmouthed on social media. They even had to call the sheriff's office for a taxpayer in my office who refused to listen to anything I had to say. So I publicly thank them for all their hard work.
Second that with my girls. Definitely. It's been tough.
So it was also brought to my attention that members of an organization in the county were informed that I switched from using JD Power, formerly NADA, to Cali Blue Book this year. And I'd like the public to know that is a lie. I call it a lie simply because it's very easy to speak to myself, my deputies, by calling my office anytime to obtain the accurate information. I've worked in the commissioner's office for the last 10 years, and Cali Blue Book has never been used to assess vehicles. And I have found no evidence that it has ever been used before my tenure began. JD Power is a standard guide for assessment of vehicles, and it's used by all commissioner offices across the Commonwealth. Another wrong statement expressed was that Middlesex County doesn't provide personal property tax relief. The personal property tax relief has been in act since 1998, and it was enacted by the General Assembly. Personal property tax relief is applied to all cars, motorcycles, and trucks with regular passenger plates in the county. Vehicles used for business are not eligible for it, and that's per state code. The state provides a specific amount to every locality as far as tax relief funds go, and that amount is allocated among all eligible vehicles, and each vehicle receives the same percentage. So for anyone with personal tax relief, to say that it's not being received, that is not the case. Tax relief amounts are printed on tax bills for every eligible vehicle, and even before billing, I send out the personal property tax form asking if taxpayers can mark their vehicles as personal or business use. Even in the event that we don't get someone's form back, me, my deputies, my staff, we check DMV records to make sure the vehicles are coded accurately. I made it a point in November of 21. I went back and checked all the board meetings, looked at them all, read all the agendas. So in November of 21, I made it a point to let the board know that personal property values were expected to increase for the new year. And it was also spoken about on 2 other occasions in April and June of this year. I understand that the public is not happy about personal property values. However, I would like the board and the public to know These are not my opinions or my deputy's opinions on the vehicle's worth. As I've been saying, state code requires a reputable pricing guide to be used, and J.D. Power is the standard. My office has the duty to all taxpayers in the county to assess personal property in real estate uniformly and equitably per state code and county ordinance. So I know when dealing with taxes and people's property, it's already a tense situation. I took an oath to serve those who voted for me and those who did not. Doesn't matter. I serve everyone. What does not help is having leaders of organizations putting out misleading and wrong hearsay, because it's a disservice to the whole county. And I'm stating for the record, as respectfully as I can, if you don't work in my office and if you do not contact me to get information, don't speak on my behalf. Whether you know me or not, everyone has the right to question what's going on in my office, and I welcome it anytime. Come see me, call me. My deputies are ready and willing to help. So just for the board, thank you for your time and the opportunity to educate all about the methods that are taken in my office.
Thank you for your comments, May. I think it's incredibly unfortunate that you've had to deal with rude and disrespectful behavior and obviously misinformation that seem to question your integrity, which I know personally is the highest standard.
Yeah, I work hard for this county, for everyone in this county, and for misinformation to be put out without asking me. That's all I ask. Just come to me anytime.
Thank you. The commissioner's report is also included in the deck on page 48. If there's any discussion that anybody would like to have about that, would ask that you both remain at the podium so we can just have a discussion about what we might do with the personal property tax. Any comments or questions before we go ahead?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've had an opportunity to chat with both the treasurer and our commissioner of revenue, and I think it may be helpful for the public here tonight and the public at home watching from home to understand a little bit about the process that goes into personal property tax. Every year we get an estimate that's based on the billing from the year before. So last year's billing, when May came and told us in November that the rates were going up, was incorporated into the budget. The increase was also noted, I think, when May came to the board meeting in May, when the inflation had really hit and the J.D. Powell books were updated. The estimates we have built into the budgets are just that, they're estimates. Until that last revised J.D. Powell book comes out, you don't have a complete understanding of what's going to be billed at that particular time. So what we provide in January, February, even as late as April, is an estimate based on the best understanding we have of values, which more often than not, if not all the time, is the previous year's billing.
Yes, for sure.
So what happened this year, as we said in our retreat, it's a black swan event. Rates, costs of goods and services, I'll say, went up dramatically between January and I would say August. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Inflation really kicked in, and therefore the values of these vehicles went up quite a bit. Values of everything across the board really went up. So a black swan event, it's a once in a lifetime thing. Hopefully, I mean, we're still in a fairly hyperinflated period. We are going to base next year's revenue estimates on this past billing, as is our practice. Now, we do have some understanding that the rates are the values are starting to trend a little lower, maybe 5 to 10% lower. So when we get into the thick of the budget next year in a month, we'll probably incorporate a revenue projection based on this year's billing minus 5 to 10%, depending on where the commissioner and the treasurer is telling us values are headed. So I just wanted to highlight that a little bit. Maybe it would provide some benefit for the public and for the board tonight.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask the county administrator question there?
Of course.
Matt, assuming there's going to be different supervisors after us and different black swan events after us, can we just formalize that in your presentation each year at the beginning of the budget process or during the budget process at a point that makes sense to you, you just incorporate the treasurer and commissioner's reports as I think you have historically at some point, but somehow we need to have something more forceful for a first year or a fifth year supervisor that may have missed something important. It's going to happen because I have 2,000 constituents and they have 2,000 important things and they're all important. I'm willing to acknowledge my fallibility and maybe I missed something as it came across, but I think what would help going forward, whether it's a black swan event or just a new crazy thing that is a product of the world that we live in and interest rates that are now being manipulated in ways that they never were. Would you just make a note that says we really need to emphasize what can happen in worst and best case scenarios from a revenue standpoint? Just, as you do when you're doing the budget, you are always educating us on how these things change over time in a way
Right.
that you uniquely know. Just
Right.
make sure we can capture something so that a new person would flag it as, oh, we really have to watch this every year.
Oh, absolutely. And just for the board's education, we do incorporate estimates that we get from the commissioner's office every year right up front. We work to finalize those estimates sometimes as late as April when we get the most up-to-date picture from the state. But given the current environment, it probably wouldn't help. It probably wouldn't hurt all of us have our head on the swivel a little bit and try to see what the Fed's likely to do. And in light of that, I would say, based on what we heard at the VACO conference, there's a great deal of unknown, but one thing is almost certain: the Fed's going to continue to raise interest rates to get inflation under control. I was 9 years old in 1979. That's the last time we had interest rates as high as what they're predicting. So
I got a couple questions. JD Powers, when they do the appraisal, how far did they go back? They went back to, yes, what year?
So for this year, 2003 up to 2021, 22, so they're not in the vote. And anything 2002 and under is no longer listed in the vote.
And that was decreased based on your office.
Yes.
The second question I got, Matt, you said a few minutes ago that looking at the year before, it was an increase in taxes. Do we have the increases for the last 6 or 7 years? And the reason I'm saying this is because we raised the tax rate year before last, causing an increase that made it different. So could we go back 5 years or something like that and see what percentage is different than increases? Yes, I want to know the, like you got, the election was like 92%. So
we
in that
can prepare a report for you. on that.
but there's a few other things I want to say.
Yeah.
In that 92%, you projected amount that there was going to be took up by the treasurer. I mean, by the treasurer or the internal revenue before you get your book from JD Powers. I'm looking for a baseline. What I'm looking for, May, is a baseline. And it's, I'm not directing it exactly to you, but I want to see a baseline of the increase because we're using the word as a black swan. And I don't feel it's justifiable because it's nothing new under the sun. We can play that role if we want to, but we got to look at the increase each year. And I've been saying that these things are budget driven. Therefore, we got to make a decision based on a black swan when we know years before that they got a certain increase. Now, I don't know if the increase on automobiles, which have depreciated, I mean, as long as I can remember. And this year, the black swan is making a lot of people, we talk about elderly and we talk about inflation, all right? But who is we causing that can't pay their bills on fixed income? I got a lot of calls too. And, you know, in some information, I also talked to you about it. So I kind of like asked you a question, which I'm sorry about JD Powers going back to 2002, and then we do the assessment in our office. I think it's very important for us to know that because we could be looking at something else when we got to make a decision whether what we gonna do. We got a certain amount of income that we're gonna, I think, beyond what we put in the budget for. Is that right? We budget a certain amount. Me personally, that's what we budget for. That's a figure. We're taking up a certain amount. JD Powers, this is how I feel about it, and I probably won't change my mind. Your insurance done went up. If you had an automobile, you could sell your car. You'll get more money, then you'll turn around, your sister would buy the car back for more than what they paid for it. 2008 on the housing market. So this is not new. It's just how we handle it when it happened. And I would say again, it's budget driven. So whatever we do tonight, we want extra revenue. We're gonna make a decision. I don't know if we can be fair or not now. All right. I use the word on some of us honesty versus trustworthy. I want honesty, you know, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm seeing the little small things to implement each year. So it gives me a percentage what we took up versus the year we increased. That gives me a mindset on where it should be at now. And I'm pretty sure that percentage, and if the money is put in, it'll give me this percentage that I need, I feel very comfortable with to recognize. And I got an area in my head now where I know I'm gonna be at, because if anyone in here done on the increase on the values on the automobiles, if they did it and divided by the number of the increase, they can figure out what percentage it is. Okay, it's not hard. If you got a 2002 to a 2022, your values went up. If you got from a 2002 down, we want to make it clear, and I'm repeating myself because I want to be clear on this. They went down. So, and we got a budget we got to deal with, and we know we're going to have extra money to put in on exactly what we put into the budget that we want. Now, I feel that we're going to come in with some scenario that we never did in the past. Then we're going to decide what percentage. No feeling, you know, I know it's more work, but everything, most of the time, what's right is not easy, okay? You can do wrong. You can fold your hands out and do wrong. And I'm gonna tell you, that's life. A person can do something wrong, it's nothing. But you do the right thing, that's hard. And because we are at where we at right now, it's not gonna be easy. People gonna, even if you try to do what you feel is right, you know, so it's not gonna be like, yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I confuse anybody or not, but I'm looking at the percentage, like everybody say, I'm looking at what was put in the budget, what was allowed. I'm looking at the growth above the budget, because that give me an area. And we got to be very careful here, because I guess what? It ain't over yet. We can't fix it this year. Only thing we can do this year is treat people like they should be treated. Now, next year, we know something is out there and we got to deal with it, because off the record, like you say, I think JD and Powell was in hoots with the car dealership and the insurance company. So I leave that alone. I didn't say that, Heather, so you would have answered me if you was over the side. So, but that's how I see it. And if you think about exactly what I'm saying, then you will find, you remember Imran? Anybody remember Imran and Anderson? And you don't believe they can get hoots with each other? Don't kid yourself. Oh, by the way, to shut them down, you know, but they came out all right. People ended up killing themselves and everything else. But I didn't say that, Lord. So I'm finished now. But y'all, I hope y'all know where I'm at. I just want y'all to know. Yeah, just a percentage, you know, it's kind of a simple percentage, I believe. It's not that great what we take every. And you don't have to do it now because, you know, I'm kind of like figure a little teeny bit out anyway. Heather, you'll be here haunting me. And you got set by Matt.
I was gonna say, we're gonna be changing the seating arrangement. I can see that now.
She has a difficult time keeping my mic turned off, Reggie. Both of us would probably strain her. No, and I want to, I heard you loud and clear, Reggie, and we will, of course, do that. We last year's budget, we had budgeted the same or the estimate based on the previous year's billing. The values were going up. We knew that in November, as May said. We incorporated those into the budget. And I think we were expecting an increase of about 700,000. I'll go back and look when we pull the budget up. But the rate of inflation increased so much between really, I would say, March and September. And that's just an estimate on my part, that when the books came out, they were that much again above and over what was estimated because inflation was running rampant and the value of these used cars are going up and up and up. I have personal opinions on why that is. I think there's a shortage of used vehicles right now. People are hanging on to vehicles a lot longer than they used to. That's one of them, but you know, I'm not prepared to back that up with any stat or anything, but just anecdotal for my part. So the surplus that y'all are going to be discussing tonight is really the amount of money over the amount that we had already budgeted for. So it's just that surplus that came in due to the Black Swan event that I have depicted in a table. And I guess this is as good as time as any. So your surplus over what was budgeted is $1.7 million. And having spoken to several of you, you had wanted breakdowns based on a certain rebate percentage of 10, 15, 20, 25, and maybe as high as 28.5%. I prepared that for vehicles only, which is this line item here, our vehicle line item. Also prepared it for vehicles and RVs, because as you see, that makes up $1.6 million of the surplus, vehicles and RVs together, which are these two items that showed the most market increase. I hope this table helps. I'll be happy to explain it further if you have any questions. But the amount of a rebate, if the board adopted a 10% rebate, say on vehicles and RVs, the amount of that surplus given back to the taxpayers would be $565,000. If the board chose 20%, the amount would be a 20% rebate, to be clear, on vehicles and RVs, the amount would be $1.1 million, and so forth and so on.
Matt, can you clarify the 1.755 million is over and above the prior year or over and above the budget line item that we included in the revenue of the budget process?
Over and above the budgeted line item. Values increased that much, and I can show that. This is what we budgeted for personal property based on the values at the time.
I just want to say thanks for the transparency. I think if I was a citizen in the audience, this is the consideration that I would want to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for being here today to help clear up some things for us. And number two, thank you very much for being the front line, take the bullets and arrows when they come. I'm sorry that you have to do that, but you have the support of everybody here, including the sheriff's office. If you need what you need to make that more bearable, we're certainly willing to do that. I think it was, I was glad that Matt, Mr. Walker chirped in about the decision process going forward. And I direct my next question to you two and or Matt, just so there's further clarification about that. I have done my research on the counties that were quick out the box to decide what they were going to do or not do. But I'd like you to explain a little bit in that one, when inflation started and there was virtually changes of numbers that were happening pretty rapidly. So I already know my opinion on it, but I'd like you to share it with the people that are here as well and for public comment. It would have been very difficult. Yes, we could have made a decision early on to do whatever we wanted to do. However, we'd have been making that decision with not necessarily all the information we needed to make that decision. Am I correct on that? I would say so too. Basically, you're waiting for the state to tell you what amount is being there, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I think that at least this board member, and I would venture a guess for the rest of the board members here, we don't want to make a mistake and then have to come back and try to rectify that mistake. So if you're prudent and you're willing to wait a little bit on what that is, hopefully the decision that's made is a little better in that you don't then have to adjust what that decision is. We've also had, coupled with personal property and real estate, some of the major projects that we have going on, those numbers, unless we have bid that project out, have changed pretty rapidly as well. So from our standpoint in looking at what we're receiving as revenue and what we have going out, we want a pretty clear, concise information about that prior to making a decision. And I'll give you one example on one decision that's going to be made later on tonight. What do we do for relief to the citizens of Middlesex County as it pertains to personal property? Me personally, I don't want to see us make a mistake on what that number should or shouldn't be, or whether we are or are not going to do anything with it. And then we find with the cost exposure that we have out here with the major projects going on, then all of a sudden we say, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't have given back this amount. Maybe we should have only given this amount because we're going to need additional amounts to be able to see these projects moving forward and completion. So me personally, I don't want to see us do anything that then results in me having to justify why we're going to raise the tax rate, which we haven't done, to be able to fund some of the projects that we're talking about. So for me, making sure you have the right decision when you make that decision is major important, as opposed to having to come back and say, oh, guess what? The numbers weren't what we thought they were going to be, and now we need to do this. So at least from this board member, and I would say the rest of the board here, we're very, very, very conscious about what that decision should be and how it should be made. Based on what Matt said, it would have been very difficult months ago to say, oh, well, we know the number is going to be this, when we didn't know what the number was, and how much do we want to give back based on whatever that number is. Does that make sense? And whatever we decide to do, thank y'all for being part of the Middlesex team, and we know you'll do a great job in however we decide to do it. Yes, it'll be some additional work if that's the case, but thank y'all for being here today and talking about that a little bit.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would just like to commend the staff, the treasurer, and the Commissioner of Revenue for the professionalism that you did, because I'm in and out your office, when this all came about, and when things arrived, I would like to say you were very professional, even though some people will get ugly, and when they get ugly, sometimes people have a system that, hey, get ugly back, but no, you were very professional, you were calm, and the sheriff department took care of the situation. And I would just want to commend you for that issue on that. This is a situation that I can say it never happened before. And as with this windfall, the 20-some years I've been here, this is the first time something like this ever happened. And for me saying this, I would say, I'm going to do what's best for the taxpayers of the county. If we get this windfall, then, I think the funds should be coming back to someone. I mean, to those one that qualify for this. And another thing I would like to say, I know some counties were ahead of the ball, as I say. I don't know, Matt can answer this. I don't know if they had an estimate or guesstimate and it came in, and they had their percentage for prior before the bills came out. And I can't answer that question. I don't know, but some counties, they had their 15, 20% before the bills went out, which that makes it much easier for your staff. And when that happens. And like I'm saying again, this was a situation that had never happened before in this scenario. Matt, could you answer the question why some other counties, did this before the bills were put out?
Absolutely. Well, I can speak to one because I have a little bit more experience with what they did. As many of you, we went to the VACO conference and we had colleagues of ours from Gloucester, And I believe Gloucester reacted to the estimates that they had received from their commissioner in November on the first increase and actually lowered their rate based on that information. We left our rates alone at that time because we expected the increase to be, well, somewhat lower. The increase, let me run over here real quick. The increase that was budgeted for was like just under $700,000. So that was what was budgeted for. Now, I think when Gloucester reacted to it and changed their rates, they reacted to that initial value swing and adjusted their rates lower because they didn't need that extra revenue. That extra revenue was used to balance last year's budget. What we're talking about tonight, though, is the actual amount billed, which by the time the Powell book came out, the values had increased fairly dramatically. And that's left us with this much more of a surplus over that we're reacting to tonight. So to say we could have lowered rates there, we could have back during the budget process, but then we probably wouldn't have been able to lower rates on real estate. And the board would recall we were adjusting real estate rates for the assessment at the time too. So I don't know, does that help, Wayne? Very good.
I got one thing to say, Lud, before you
Go ahead, Reggie.
before you say it. See, I believe in stuff need to be done right away. I feel if you put something in the budget and you satisfy the budget because something else increased, I don't think that's a reason not to do nothing. Because if you satisfy what you're putting into the budget, you have no reason not to do something instead of waiting. I don't believe we should wait. I mean, you know, I believe we should do what we got. We have the extra money because we got a great divide here. And the great divide comes at, we talking about automobiles. J.D. Powers went down to 2003. In 2002 and lower than that, they decreased by 5%. That's a great divide. But what I'm saying, we make a mistake. Then if we make a mistake, we got to increase the tax values. I mean, all of us agree on that, right? But why should we give some so-called break at 5%? And then if we have to increase, the ones that we kind of like already have increased will have to increase again. So I'm looking at doing something now, and regardless of what we do, we're not going to do it right. But we can do as best we can to try to satisfy our citizens. And I'm going to say a little story that I had. When I was driving over there to New Camp, this guy was on the bus, a little boy was on the bus, and I said, why are you going over New Camp? Because I don't believe in, we send everything out another county to do. And he said, I'm over to take catering. I said, why you want to take catering? He said, because I want to learn how to cook. I said, learn how to cook? You ain't make no money to learn how to cook. He said, but I want to go to school for history. He gave me goosebumps. And I said, well, history? He said, he's a senior at high school. And he said, I don't want history to repeat itself. I said, are you accepted in college? We got a conversation. He said, Longwood. I'll be going to Longwood this year. I said, son, a young person like that said, don't want history to repeat itself. We can't make excuses because I'm telling you, if all of us have any type of anything, it's nothing new under the sun. It's a repeat and we can't change our mind at what we want to do. And we got to try to do it as a county. Not being foolish, but maybe we will have to, hey, we got a whole lot of money just spending in the county. It's probably going to be an increase, but we're going to increase the real estate too, okay? In case y'all don't know, we didn't increase that. A lot of people didn't have escrow. They come to me and say, well, lady, other night at church, she said, I don't know if I said, do you know how much you're paying in taxes? No. 80% of the people I talk to, that's who I'm representing. The 80% that really don't look up for themselves, that don't know this. And I'm not going to sneak over by the eyes and say something else. I'm for real. When they did real estate taxes, we voted to lower it 1%. And not telling everybody, look at your bill because it's going to go up. I said, because we charging you more. On this car, we talking about personal property, what it is. I'm telling you right now, it's going to go up, okay? It's going to go up. We just going to try to slow it down so it won't go up as much as the mafia got to with NG Powers. I would fire them, but I leave them alone. But that's all I got to say. Thank you. And thank y'all for doing a good job. And talking to May and stuff when I go in the office, I mean, it's just like just as pleasant as anything in the world to do. And I will go there, and I know this is unusual, you know, so I gotta go talk to my man at the dealership and find out how he doing, Don, and find out how he doing. He tell me, hey man, your old truck ain't worth as much as it was last year, because he can't get it to you. Yes, I'm gonna do that, because he offered me a price for it. And I misused you, for instance. You offered me a price, got a lot of it. Didn't want to do it because I know you. I said, I know y'all trying to get together with everybody. And I believe that, okay? I believe that us as working class America gotta watch out, because they're tearing us up and we don't realize we pay all the taxes, we can't get no money. It's a good thing we're gonna put in for the grant on the sewer and the water, all that money is out there, and Middlesex County is not getting nothing. They say we too rich, but I'm telling you, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm not, you know. But anyway, thank y'all for listening. Y'all keep on doing what you're doing. And you just stepped right in and just fell right in the lake, because all this stuff in the time you've been in the office, child, I tell you, and I know that mind is spinning on you, you know, so, hey, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Reggie. As I think about this, two things come to mind. One is, what should we do now? What's the right thing to do? And what can we learn from what's happened here? And I think it's important, starting with what we can learn, to put into context what's happened. During our budget process, we review our rates and we review the estimated income that comes from those rates. And on our best estimate, we had a $700,000 increase in total revenue without increasing our personal property tax rates. Our rate of $2.60 at the time of our budget was the lowest of any of our adjoining counties. Looking out in the survey that I've done this week, Matthews is $3.70. Essex, that was mentioned earlier today, $3.75. New Kent, $3.10. Northumberland, $3.60. And the city of Williamsburg, that was mentioned in an article by the Southside Sentinel, applauded for lowering their rate by 20%. Well, they started out at $3.50, so they wound up at $2.80. We're still at $2.60. So I don't fault the Board of Supervisors during our budget process for not saying, oh, we should lower our rate. We have to deliver a certain amount of revenue for the county in order to cover our expenses. And it seemed to me that the second lowest rate of any of the adjoining counties was a very reasonable approach to take. So I think what we learned from that process is we continue to work on the basis of what we expect that we're going to be able to generate. And if we have to adjust the rate in order to cover the expenditures that we need, then we'll do that. But I feel like the approach that was taken was correct. I'm absolutely certain, having scrutinized this almost daily for the past month and in conversations with you, May, that you came up with your assessments on the same basis as you always have. There was no change, and the accusations that there was something underhanded, I think, are extremely disturbing. So thank you for your steadfastness in explaining to people over and over and over again, because you did good work. So what can we learn? I don't think that we're going to have an appreciation in used cars ever again like we had because of COVID. I just don't, until computer chips disappear or some other black swan event that could happen. But anyway, it doesn't mean that we should have anticipated it. I don't think, because we didn't have any data. So it comes to what we're going to do. Myself, I'm in favor of returning some of the excess funding to our taxpayers. And I would ask my other board members to convey whether you're interested in the same thing. This is going to be a burdensome process, I think is going to fall on you, Tracy. I apologize in advance, but I'm going to advocate that we provide a refund or a discount for those who have not paid. So board members, I'd love for your input on that idea.
Yes, I agree with you. There's some type of rebate that needs to be done, and I know it's gonna be heavy in Tracy's office, and she's gonna need some help. Cause understanding with our attorney and everything, you have to do something this year. You can't wait and give a credit next year and all this stuff. It has to be done this year. So, and to do that in a reasonable time, you're gonna need help for what, 13,000 or 17? How many? It's hard to say. And then if you think about it, it's a lot of different variables that you got to go through. And that's the thing. It's not an easy process because depending on the year of the car and the rebates, and it's a lot of different varieties of things that you have to do in your office, and you're going to need that help. And Matt, I would like to get some information from my county attorney. We got some percentages there. What do you think? That's what I'm gonna see what my county administrator thinking about.
I was going to say your attorney's going to have to draft an ordinance. She'll talk about that in a moment. But I've given the board several options. We can actually, I didn't hear anybody say they only wanted a 5%. So I've got a range here from 10 all the way up to 28.5. 28.5 is about as close as you can get to the full amount of the surplus, at least on vehicles and RVs. And again, I only included categories that I'd heard from board members that they were talking about considering. There seems to be some consensus around vehicles and RVs being eligible for the rebate or the refund. Is that correct?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, can, Mr. Walker, and this is a question also for the Commissioner of Revenue, can you clarify the definition of vehicles is quite broad in the code, and I'm thinking May's thinking the same thing I'm thinking. There's numerous categories. What do you mean by the term vehicles? Could you help us understand that?
I will.
Thank you.
We get estimates from the Commissioner's office every year based on categories. They have a group of a category called vehicles, and everything under vehicles, I believe, is the PPTRA eligible. And then RVs or campers, trailers, different things of that nature, like in the campground, and pull behinds and RVs like Class A motorhomes.
Those are vehicles that personal property tax.
Okay.
So for vehicles, that's the broader category. That's like multiple parts of 3503.
And it base loosely is going to be anything that is classified as a vehicle from the code section for DMV for motor vehicles.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, because
In that first grouping of vehicles.
you know what I was saying. So that would include trucks of 2 tons. It would just be. Okay.
So those are the two classifications that I based the numbers on. And when you consider the surplus just on vehicles and RVs, we're at 1.6 million approximately, a little over. You see your range of percentages there. I've heard it all over, so I provided a range from 10 to 28.
Can I just butt in for this one?
Sure.
Ms. Kimber, when you stated you wanted to do discount or refund.
They're just talking off to the side.
Stated in the refund or discount. I thought I heard the wording for those who have not paid. You all are assuming or want to include the fact that they have paid.
That's the only way that we would be able to reach these numbers. So I'm going to think out loud here. If I haven't paid, we enact an ordinance that says X% reduction on the vehicles that we define. I come to the window and I'm ready to pay. Here's my bill. You calculate that percent written on those vehicles, and that's what I would pay. that needs to happen before the payment deadline of February the 6th.
Well, if you also choose, yeah.
If I have already paid or I just mail in what you tell me, then subsequent to the due date of February 6th, the treasurer would be able to calculate and distribute a refund. But that wouldn't be under a time crunch like we would be for the February 6th deadline. So hopefully that would give a little bit of relief to the labor requirements of enacting this. Is that
Yes. That's our.
okay?
So in speaking to the process just a little bit, Heather's already started drafting an ordinance in anticipation of the board taking some action on moving forward with a certain percentage and the different classifications here. She will probably have that for the board, and I'm speaking for her, she's right here, for the January meeting. You'll review it at the January meeting. You could send it to public hearing. I mean, if you want to review it and just individually let her know, that's okay. We probably could get it done and have hopefully met the public notice deadlines to have that public hearing in January. That could be rushing it a little bit with Christmas coming on. I don't think, Larry, does the paper have an issue that comes out between Christmas and New Year's, or do y'all take that week off? Yeah, so we'd have to get it in that much earlier to meet the deadline. So long story short, if we get you an ordinance in January, you consider it, you send it to public hearing. Usually it would be the February meeting for public hearing. That's February 7th. That's one day after the extension, which, by the way, on behalf of all the staff and taxpayers, we appreciate y'all extending the deadline. So it would be in essence a refund at that point. The ordinance would be adopted on February 7th. You would authorize the treasurer to issue refunds based on, I guess, 25% of the tax bill for vehicles and RVs.
So let me just question whether we can't get this enacted, the ordinance enacted in January, so that people can come to the window in January and not have to come up with whatever extra cash.
So thank you. I was going to just say, so we're required to advertise it for 2 consecutive weeks in the paper. So playing the what if game, assuming I had a consensus from the board and you made, it would be advertised on the 15th and the 22nd.
This week's off.
Right. So that there's your 2 consecutive weeks. And then your January meeting is on the 3rd. You could adopt it on the 3rd. That just requires a quick turnaround from y'all on feedback.
You're required to advertise it 2 weeks.
I know it's of highest priority. The only thing that I see strong clarification on in preparing is that exact definition of vehicles. And it already sounds like May's telling me I need to, what code to be looking at. So she and I suspect that is going to be the most difficult part, is clarifying what qualifies for the refund. And I just want to make sure that I capture that in the ordinance, what y'all want. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One, I think I didn't completely answer Wayne's question earlier. I think he was looking for information from me. So let me give one. And mine's going to be a little unorthodox. And I'm going back to what we were thinking in January, February, and March when we were finalizing this year's budget. We were reacting to the reassessments, and we were trying to pin down on how much we were going to lower real estate taxes. So if the board was asking me for a recommendation tonight, I think I would recommend the 15% option and lower the real estate tax an additional penny before the June 5th collection. Because had we known values were going to go up this much in personal property, I think we would have been more aggressive with real estate. That would be my recommendation. And that's just my opinion.
So you must have done some math to arrive at that
I have.
break-even point. Can you share that with us?
I have. We would, if we lowered the real estate rate an additional penny.
Point of order. There's no motion on the table. What are we doing? Like, we're going all over the place now. I thought we were talking
Wayne,
about.
Wayne asked me for a recommendation.
Is this appropriate without a motion on the table to be going this deep into this without the full consent of the board? Because I haven't spoken against this. I've spoken with you guys about, maybe a rebate's appropriate, but now we're moving all over the place and there's not even a motion on the floor.
Well, I was just answering a question from a board member, John, but I have done some math and it would be just over $1.1 million of a total refund by lowering the real estate tax 1 penny and the 15% on vehicles and RVs. But that kind of mixes the two a little bit. I'm going back and trying to play what if we had this information during the budget.
Yes. I'm reluctant to go somewhere else myself. Wayne, what are your thoughts?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted, it's another question I had from a constituent that there's quite a few lease vehicles. They take their money and they send it to the company, right? Now, yeah, if there's a rebate, how would that scenario work?
They send us everything for the vehicles, it'll be registered under the lease company's name, but we have the leasing information, so those that have it in their contract that they're required to pay the property tax, they'll send to them. But the majority of them, the leasing company is required to pay the taxes, and then the leasing is required to pay them as part of their contract. So if there is a rebate, those vehicles that would receive a rebate from the leasing companies, it would be sent back to the lease company. The taxpayer would have to work with the leasing company to obtain the contract. Or how would that suggest them that we don't handle that?
Right, because I know they had already sent their bill out. See, that's the bills at the lease company. Okay, all right, thank you for that.
Okay. So are we far enough along here? We can create a motion?
Wait a minute. Create a motion by what?
Exactly.
I don't agree. It's dead set on what Matt said, not to go 15 and mess with the real estate. We're not here with real estate. We are here to take care of the personal property. So right then, if you want to listen to something, it's not even on my chart. We're getting things confused because we're trying to rotate stuff. I really don't like that move. I won't say what I'm saying, but Matt, you should never put the real estate.
It was unorthodox.
Property, and I guess you know that. Man, I don't like that one at all. I'm be honest with you. We got to deal with what we got to deal with. And one thing, wait a minute, John. And one thing, Matt did come with the number 1.1, Matt.
For my recommendation?
No, for what you said a few minutes ago, it came to 1.1.
Yeah, with 1 penny off on real estate and this.
Oh, yeah,
whole
okay, that's
total.
fine. So that's 25%. You just told me what we should do.
Well, 25% is 1.4 million. 20% is 1.1.
I got a question for Heather. So the ordinance, does it have to be specific on exactly what we're giving or wanting to give back to the, does the resolution have to have all of that encompassed in it when we do the resolution?
When you do the ordinance, yes, sir.
Oh, the ordinance, excuse me.
Yes, sir. So what I need in order to draft it articulately is I need to know what the rebate amount is, as a
Okay.
percentage, and what it applies to.
Okay.
So that's what I'm seeking
And
clarification.
the ordinance needs to take place
Yes, sir.
before January 1, correct?
No, sir. What we need to do is, the code section says if you have a year in which you declare a surplus in that same fiscal year, you can refund back to the
Right.
taxpayers. No, I can have it prepared for your January meeting. I just need 2 notices in the paper. And in order to meet that, because they don't run that extra
Okay.
week,
Okay.
And it's not calendar year, it's fiscal year.
Right.
fiscal year, yes.
Okay.
So we're still okay in
Okay.
that regard, yes, sir. But I do need to know the amount and on what.
Gotcha.
So to get something on the table here, I'll entertain a motion to offer a rebate or discount if paid during the payment period of 20% of the vehicle and RV segment of personal property as Matt has represented here.
You made the motion?
I will entertain a motion from somebody for that.
It's called fishing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, hearing none, I'd like to just, oh, go ahead.
You've been very quiet. Go ahead. Let me want to hear something from John Coombs.
Well, and I've been quiet because it's my understanding based on what we've discussed here and what I've discussed with my constituents, that I'm the only citizen in Middlesex County with a truck at Eddie's right now with a transmission that's going out that's a 2017. That's what I've learned. But I've also learned I'm the only one that understands that the inflation that hits the meat in the market hits everything else, including all of the budgets that we're about to review in January. When you come and tell me that your staff is tired and needs more of a break, when you tell me that your staff is overworked, I'm going to say, well, we already cut how much money we have coming in because people were overworking you and underpaying you. Sorry, we're actually going to take one of your positions away. Or I might just go to the schools who we underfund every year, 7 out of 10. And I might say to the schools, I'm sorry, we're going to miss the field goal that I talked about last year again this year, but we're going to miss it by more because we already cut our funding before we even know what we're going to be spending next year, because none of my departments have come in and told me what anything costs. So I'm exposed in my household that is Middlesex County to the same things that I'm exposed to in my household that is in Middlesex County. So what we're talking about doing is panicking, stealing something quickly from the refrigerator and throwing it into the wood stove and expecting to get heat. We're just panicking because we're experiencing inflation. And you know what? If you go to the Walmart associate and tell them to reduce the price of meat, I will happily join Walmart, the big corporation that is passing on all of that inflation to you, the consumer, to me, the consumer. I will match them because I know you're not going to the federal government. I know you're not going to the state government, and I know you're not going to Walmart, but I know you're calling me, and I see you in Food Lion. The last person I talked to was standing in front of the meat. And so I'm going to be different than maybe some others here, and I'm going to say that I'm not in favor of a rebate because I don't know what things cost right now. And I haven't heard from any of the departments that provide your ambulances, your children's education, your social services, contributes to your YMCA, your museums. I haven't heard what the costs have done over there. But when they get to me, I'll tell them that I've already cut their budgets because that's what we're going to publish in the paper when we give out a rebate. If we can get through this meeting, if there's going to be a motion. And I said I'd be quiet unless we started talking about more than 10%. So now I'll be quiet.
Well, you know, me and John is completely opposite on what he's thinking. He's you pay more, and I talk about the Great Divide again. I'm talking about the Great Divide. Now, if we have to increase something next year, we'll just have to increase based on the budget and not foolishness. Now, a part about everybody asking for something next year in your budget, I encourage you to look at your budget real good, regardless on who it is, and you look at your budget. We got to handle what's right now. All of us have inflation because all of us are paying more. And that's what we are doing when we talk about personal property taxes. Because you got a vehicle over 2003, you saying you deserve to pay more. Well, we better take an inventory of ourselves. All of us don't have to drive 50 miles to go to work and stuff like this here. That needs a dependable vehicle to drive. And I would show you that most of Middlesex County got to go out of county to make any money, need a dependable vehicle. So this is what I'm saying. We hound what's in front of us. We keep on, you know, if you look at, for instance, if you had a 2000 Chevy Traverse, and you had a tax bill of the year before of $500 some. Then you turn around this year and got one close to $900. Now, somebody's going to tell me or you That's right. You don't deserve any of that money back when we know the budget was based on X 700,000. That's what we put in the budget. That's satisfied. That satisfied the budget plus what we did. We raised your real estate. We already done raised that. So you don't see that. Now we're going to turn around the year before that. We raised your personal property taxes. Now we want to shove it to only the people who really working, who got to travel around. We want to raise yours again. And we got nerve enough to set up here and say that you don't deserve nothing. This is crazy, and I think we wasting time. We got a percentage here. And I was thinking of a higher percentage than the 20, man, because I lack 25, because I got to do a poll of vehicles. And I know it's in the 30. Y'all asked us to watch Bath County. I mean, all of y'all watch Bath County because we looked in, we got something in our mail. What did Bath County do? They gave 33%. So now you hit my head, I can't figure it out. I was only showing 28. Maybe they got more new vehicles or something like that, so more of them went up. I don't know. We playing with different counties that's not on 100%. I've said before, this is Middlesex, okay? We keep playing with other counties. We don't know. They got other revenue coming in. They drop this. They got machine tax. You ever heard of that? Look at it on your budget. We got zero. Gloucester got machine tax. These places got other taxes that have revenue that we don't have. And we got to stop looking at them. We know that we are budget driven, and everything we do is based on the budget, and we increase and decrease based on the budget. And right now our budget is satisfied. In fact, they say we're in good shape. Now, the only reason we could be in good shape is I can't figure it out, because we don't charge, let me say it like that, us pay more of real estate taxes is the reason that we're in good shape right now, because if we were kid ourselves, we would know if we followed the budget. That's why I actually implement each year. You go back 10 years, see which way. Small ain't nothing, because we could leave it because they're going to get us again next year if we don't do the right thing. If the car industry don't turn around, pay attention to what's going around, and if they do, they're going to drive the used cars down because they got to sell the new cars, okay? And we got to look at the whole picture. So here tonight is kind of small. We got a small thing to do. We just got to feel we can do the right thing because we know what we have to do when we do it. I'm looking at 25%. I was looking at 30, but I try to get enough votes. I guess to tell me you got to go 3-2. So I got to see where I'm at.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Reggie, just a question, or is it 25% on vehicles and RVs or just vehicles?
I don't know that much, but this is a recreation of vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm talking about something they need. So
Okay.
I'm leaning more to the automobile trucks, that where to drive that goes, where to stuff like that.
Okay.
Definitely, I'm looking.
I just want to make sure I had that right.
Do we have a motion?
You're still talking about it.
I'm color coding markers.
It would be much appreciated from this seat if someone would make a motion.
How can I say this thing without that?
So you give it a shot and I'll help you clean it up.
All right. I'll make a motion that we give 25% on vehicles only.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Motion by Mr. Williams. Second by Mr. Jesse. Discussion.
Can we find out what for vehicles only does to our staff that we're going to be cutting maybe some of their staff from?
Other discussion?
Sorry.
With the workload, what do you?
The workload or the.
So is it very simple to do just vehicles only?
We need to know from you all whether it's going to include business, personal use, if utility trailers would be included in as well, because that all funds falls under the code section.
So
6.24.
So that motion, you don't know what to do with that until we explain more than that. So there's,
Matt, sorry to interrupt, but Matt has quantified a number here. So whatever comprises that number is what we're talking about.
what is that we're talking about?
Turn my mic on. So what that number is the surplus, and I'm gonna zoom out again, trying to zoom in on just that table so y'all can see that. Do this in real time. So it's the surplus driven by the vehicles category, which came in by far the most in terms of the value change. So of the $1.7 million surplus, 1.3 of it is from vehicles alone.
So if we just said vehicles, does that,
To me, when you say vehicles, the number that I provided, it includes, it's going to include all business vehicles. It's going to include utility trailers, boat trailers. It's also going to include cattle trailers, horse trailers. Also cars, trucks, and motorcycles. SUVs. It encompasses all except for recreational vehicles, what would be motorhomes, travel trailers, park models.
would we be amenable to adding that language to the motion so that we're all in agreement what we're talking about, whether we settle on 0% or -5%, irrelevant?
Yeah, and I would just add, John, all of those values are addressed under that assessed valuation of $183 million worth of assessed value there. So the number should be the same.
What I'm trying to get is a motion that acknowledges something that then can get the constitutional officers in a position to do it, not come back and forth with all of staff. Let's make it clear what vehicles means in the motion. And then if you guys want to change it to whatever percent and deny this motion, then the next motion, we can all agree to what vehicles means and make it so that it's a directive for the constitutionals where we're not going back and forth. That's all I'm trying to do.
And I'll just add this, Mr. Williams and the board, I think this is clear with your motion. I am taking that the 25% for vehicles only as defined by the Commissioner of Revenue. That's what you would like for me to put into the ordinance, which will then be considered on January. So I am taking that, even though those words weren't used, I'm taking that presumption that that's what you're directing me to do.
I think that satisfies
Yeah,
it.
that sounds good. Okay, other discussion?
And I would just say the 25 seems very arbitrary to me, given a scale that was arbitrary between 10 and 28.5. Obviously, we know that the numbers increase with the higher percentage rebate, but we've said nothing as to where we're getting this money. And you can say that we got a windfall, but I have a lot of trouble saying this is a windfall when we don't know what the other side of the ledger looks like yet. And this money is intended for the next year, and the next year's budget discussion hasn't even begun. And so this may be a black swan as we've chosen to describe it, but if it is, I suspect it's not our last black swan. And so we're going to have to call it something else. And we're going to have to be prepared as fiscal managers of the community to be able to withstand the scrutiny of people that are not necessarily using the facts, to people that are excited because there's nobody else picking up the phone when they say, change my prices. Nobody else is even picking up the phone. We're the last people. We're the last people that they can really come to and say, give us a shot. And that may be a good enough reason to say, hey, if nobody else is giving them a break, let's give them a break. But let's not lie to them and tell them that our services are getting cheaper when everything else is not. Let's be very honest. What we're doing is we're setting up a tax raise next year or service cuts next year. The question is, how much? Are we going to take 1.19 million and say that's negative before we even start next year? Or are we going to do something less than that? And that would be my only point of clarification.
I'll just respond to that, John, for my own perspective. We're operating a fiscal 23 budget where we have a budgeted amount of revenue. We have budgeted expenditures. Thus far, I'm not aware of our budgeted categories of expenditure coming in with significant variance from what we have budgeted. Compensation increases do not happen until the next fiscal year. We have experienced additional revenue without experiencing within this budget additional expenses. And so in my mind, I feel like that this is a balanced approach. So just
And
put it out there.
we don't differ very much, except I said my limit was 10%. Yours is somewhere well north of 10%, and you started the discussion with 10% as the floor. So we don't differ at all in our logic, just our tactics.
Okay. Other discussion? All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
That's me. Supervisor Harris,
Aye.
Supervisor Williams,
Aye.
Supervisor Jesse,
Aye.
Supervisor Coons,
No.
Supervisor Kimbrough,
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
who made that motion?
That was made by Supervisor Williams and seconded by Supervisor Jesse. In May, let's talk in the morning.
May and Tracy, I think we'll let you sit down.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. All right, let's, all right, we're picking up the agenda. Next we have two additional agenda items that were inserted at the beginning of this meeting. First, Heritage Committee report. Is Pat?
Yes, she's right there.
I can't see. Oh, there you are. All right. Sorry. Back with that. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good news.
I came with no expectations of saying anything.
Oh, sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, may I say that I am Patricia Holston Satterfield, and I am chair of the Heritage Committee, which is a not-for-profit corporation of the state of Virginia. And I want to first express the gratitude on behalf of the Heritage Committee for your accommodating our present request. Many of you may be aware, many of you may not be aware, that our committee has existed since 2019. And it was organized by the then chair of the Board of Supervisors, Wayne Jesse. And it was all in conjunction with a then planned project that was truly quite amazing. And we won't go down that road, but we know that the original concept of the project that we were a part of was abandoned due in large measure by the pandemic, which caused one of the major players to withdraw, and that would be the Croxton brothers. The Heritage Committee was charged with discovering, preserving, and setting forth recommendations to acknowledge the rich history of African Americans within Middlesex County, starting from day one. And since that time, we have worked strenuously to meet this task, to meet this mission. We have been in collaboration and discussions with various different agencies to make a determination as to exactly how we were going to achieve our objectives, which we have set forth as short-term objectives and long-term. We had three components of our three projects in terms of short-term, one of which has been partially realized, and that is the nature trail that we refer to as the Heritage Trail. And it is envisioned that along that trail that was dedicated back in May of 2022 would be signage that would set forth the history in large part of the area in which the trail lives, which is Cook's Corner, the history of St. Clair Walker High School, the former high school for African-American students or Black students during the period of segregation, et cetera. That was project number one. Project number two that really began, it was conceived in 2019, was the designation of St. Clair Walker High School campus and the Rappahannock Central Elementary School cafeteria would carry the state and federal designation as a historical or historic district. The third project would be the restoration, preservation, and utilization of the White Building, which is the building that served as the cafeteria, the vocational and agricultural classes for St. Clair Walker High School. This committee is comprised of alumni, for the most part, of St. Clair Walker High School that went out of existence in 1969. And many of us have memories of the history of our parents and our grandparents as they floated around Cook's Corner. How did it get its name? We're not sure. How is it that African-American families from the dump, the convenience center in Saluda, all the way around to Urbana, owned all of the land? How did that happen? We're not sure. How is it then that this was a free community of color? We're not sure. We have oral histories that are laying out the great importance of Cook's Corner, St. Clair Walker High School, Rappahannock Central. And it is critical to the county of Middlesex, and I must say this, all along the way, the Heritage Committee has had ongoing support from our county administrator, Matt, thank you very much. Members of the Board of Supervisors, Michelle Brown was one of our most staunch supporters. We have reached a very, very, very exciting, what can I tell you? We are exhilarated. Within the last 2 weeks, all of our dreams are coming to fruition. We are in collaboration, and we provided to you much earlier a memorandum of understanding between the Heritage Committee, which at the time that we executed the agreement, we did not have the not-for-profit status under state law. The Fairfield Foundation, under the direction of David Brown and Thane Harpole, have been very, very supportive and instrumental in aiding us to finalize and crystallize exactly where we want to go. And this has been the case since 2020. We are very, very, very pleased to say that in the last 2 weeks, number one, we became eligible to apply for a grant, and we are seeking $150,000 minimal. That's the most we can take, maximum, for the restoration of the White Building, to be utilized in a fashion that we mutually agree would be best for that structure. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. The wood in it, and John, you went with us on, we have been on a tour. It can serve so many community needs while setting forth the history of the African-American community. We have a deadline for the submission of the grant application. And the grant application is being made to the National Preservation Trust, the African American Action Fund. That's project number 3. Project number 2, the historical designation, the state has taken responsibility for funding this through its emergency fund that was set aside for hurricane relief. They are undertaking to absorb the cost associated with the historic designation. And the state determined back in 2019 that the property at issue is eligible and should be included in the state as well as federal register as a valuable historic district. Now, the last pronouncement that came out from the state DHR was that not only did it qualify under the stated criteria previously identified, but it also qualified under additional criteria to acknowledge the person responsible for much of the educational growth of the Black community. And that was the person for whom St. Clair Walker was named, John Henry St. Clair Walker, a young educator with vision who ultimately was responsible for crafting the education structure for Black Americans in Middlesex County. And the only area in which there was a commitment from the county to have any financial support for the Fleck Heritage Committee was the signage component of the nature trail. So we are here today to request two things: an appropriation for the signage and a mere letter of consent that you agree and support the designation of the property at issue as a historic district, as well as the restoration and preservation of the White Building. Are there any questions?
Pat, the only question is I've discussed how excited we are about this progress with my colleagues. The only question that's come up is whether we're aware is the historic designation, does that in any way impair the county's ability to operate in those areas? And I believe Saluda has been designated.
Well,
historic
I
district.
anticipated this question, so I just dropped my pen. And I am going to read to you precisely what DHR has to say about the impact of a historic register. What does listing a property or a historic district in the VLR or National Register means? It's strictly honorary. It officially recognizes the historic significance of a place, building, site, or area. It encourages but does not require preservation of the property or historic district. Okay. Offers limited protections to properties from potentially harmful federally or state-funded activities. May qualify owners for voluntary state and federal rehabilitation tax credit programs and DHRS's easement program. Listing in the registers does not, one, prevent an owner from renovating or demolishing buildings. Two, require an owner to restore or renovate property. Three, restrict an owner's use of the property. Four, increase property values or taxes. Five, regulate local governments or require creation of a local historic preservation program. And it goes on to say that local governments have the authority to create historic preservation ordinances and historic district overlays. These and other such efforts are locally controlled, do not involve DHR, and are not a part of the register process. So in short, by the Department of Historic Resources on regulations supported by statute, there are no restrictions basically on what the owner can do with its property. What I would strongly urge, particularly, and at this point, we are seeking monies for the White Building, but there is the cafeterium as well that falls into the historic district designation. That consideration may be given to the Heritage Committee also applying for grants for the restoration of that building and its utilization as we all mutually would agree upon. Any additional questions?
Very exciting minutes.
No one
Thank you.
has questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just commend the hard work that I know you have been doing as the head. And we appreciate it because we go back a long ways. We go back, as you know, we go back a long way, but like you say, from 2019. And you had some people that had doubts. But I'm glad that things are coming ahead now and we're progressing. And I can commend you and the rest of the board. We got Hallie Jean here, and I commend all of you for the great job done.
Yes, well, it has been a lot of work. It's been a lot of thought. And we've had very positive support from this body,
And
from the
also-
chairpersons.
And also Louis Briggs, I see him back here too.
Louis Briggs is here.
Yeah, he right back here. I don't think I missed anybody else, but I just want to make sure I got them all. I don't want to leave
Yes,
anybody
well,
out there. Someone.
you know, all of this came about so quickly, and I did not even have an opportunity to truly communicate with the members of the board that this was going to happen today, because I was not aware that this was going to happen today. And I came with the expectation of saying nothing that.
You dress too nice to leave out there. They're gonna call you out.
And I will have to, and I hope you'll act positively upon our request. Every document that I have cited, you have in your possession, including, as your chairperson says, you guys need bylaws. And we got that, we got the status. We are not a non-for-profit. We are not a 501c3. Whether we go that route, we're still discussing, but we are a not-for-profit. And our fiscal agent, the money will flow through our partner in this. And that would be the Fairfield that will make sure that all accounting is done properly. And very much in the forefront. By the way, when you're considering the signage portion of it, the monetary request includes not only the cost for the kiosk and the development of text, but it also, I've outlined to you the type of research we have to do. Because whatever we place on those signs that people are going to be seeing as they walk through, as it describes Cook's Corner and its history, we have to have accuracy. And we're getting good information in. The board, the committee itself has been engaged in research. The Fairfield Foundation has a whole segment that is focusing on the history of Cook's Corner, St. Clair Walker High School. We are working collaboratively. So we want accuracy. We also have included in the budgetary request public relations pieces, including brochures. One of the proposals for the use of the white building has been sort of like a visitor center because it stands at the entrance to the Heritage Trail. And with that, I say thank you very, very much for allocating this time to us to speak. And I look forward to your most positive reaction to all that I've said that will be manifesting itself in fulfilling the request that we made in writing to you, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Middlesex. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat.
And it's almost dark.
Good work.
Mr. Chairman, in your supplemental packet in front of you tonight, there is the budget supplement request form in the amount of $36,000 to get the signage underway. And I would like to extend on Wayne's remarks. I think Wayne and I attended one of the first meetings that was held at Pat's house, and they have come a long way. They've done a lot of good work here. Yeah, I don't think you could get out of her house and maybe sample that casserole she had in the oven unless you agreed to do so. Yes, it very much did. It was a very good casserole. In any event, you have at your seat the budget supplemental request, and we've also drafted a consent letter that will meet their needs. We just need authorization to send it from the board. Thank you. And thanks, Pat.
I'll make the motion for the consent letter for authorization. And also I'd like to make a motion on FY 2023-21 budget supplement request for $36,000.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Harris. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Coons,
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have another added item, the Wake Landing input and discussion from Dave.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, all. Just to refresh the board's memory, we entered into an agreement with the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission where they're going to commission some different ideas to solve the siltation and the issue with the dredge issue down at Wake Boat Landing. Mr. Kuntz and I attended a meeting with Louis Lawrence and Kurt Smith last Wednesday afternoon. During that discussion, it was recommended by Louis to the only surveys that are available on the site before going forward too far with the design, we really need to know a couple things. We need to know what we have. The surveys available are from the 30s. They're old. It really needs to be surveyed before we do a design. To kind of follow up on that, this is not as pressing as the survey itself. We need to find out who as well. This could very well be county property. It's possible. There's a lot of these agreements. We know there's an agreement between Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, whatever their new acronym is, and the VDOT. So we know that, and it may very well be that this was turned over from the county to the state, or it may be operated on the county's behalf. But anyway, we can find that out later. What we need now is basically authorization from the board to commission a survey. Mr. Jones with Bay Design Group was kind enough to get us a quote last week in kind of a hurry. His estimation for the work was between $3,500 and $4,000 for a survey for that property. I would recommend highly that we get that survey done. I think Mr. Kuntz agrees with that. We're both in agreement with that. We need to know where those property lines are. We have some sensitivity issues with current property owners adjacent to it. We want to be cognizant of whatever we do there. We need to know where we're putting things and that type of thing. So I guess we would just need an authorization for administration to be able to issue that check once they complete that survey. Any other questions from the board members?
So moved on the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Williams.
I just want to say one thing. I did reach out to Mr. Jones of Bay Design Group and apologize for my comments in a previous meeting. I got a little emotional and was a little hard on his firm. And I think he made some points in a private conversation that convinced me that I was in error. And so I apologize for that and using my speaker and microphone in a way that was inappropriate. And I thank him for looking past that and accepting my apology and turning this around as quickly as he did.
Hopefully they can get on this pretty quick because we want to get this design up and running. So thank you.
Any discussion?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. I'm gonna take a break here for 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 5 o'clock. Microphone. Microphone's off.
Yes.
Yes.
Or I'm calling. Yes, sir.
All right. You did. Mine, I'm like, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, so I'm gonna copy you.
It's very hard.
I know.
That's a way.
Yeah.
But I plan now looking out.
Talk myself into the aisle.
Six.
Okay.
We share. Are you gonna be able?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I just in my mind. I don't. We can't smile. I just tell myself. What's happening?
It's Sunday.
Then when
President. Weeks ago. Thank you. How are you? Right. Right.
Yes, yeah. Well, what I did. Yeah, that's.
What are you doing, Jacob? With the 200 people limit, I didn't even sit down. Well, I didn't keep my, you knew that. Yeah. That's there, right? Better hand brings that. I told Lisa back her points. I, that she didn't even tell them. I didn't tell us.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Yeah, I did, and then, I got.
Okay, yeah, you all.
Well, I mean.
What was the bell? I don't mind going back to something. Let's go there. Inside. Yeah, exactly. It's not money this time. I'm one of the parents, not the money. This is, I think, around. I would say this effort is aimed at trying to increase the public attention to the restricted. Need to be working together to cause main pension or I understand on the Delta builder, but it's kind of yeah. I don't know. I think it's being on. Yeah. I don't know if you're with some of the books that are very active. Yes, about service. Oh, yeah. And it goes. All right, thank you. He was asking, and I didn't talk about it. Right, that was out of town. So, anyway. Raw screen, Barnes and Noble, $17 papers there.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
And my granddaughter brought a copy of that. I was passing it. Where and she entered the book and she said, my grandpa wants you to see my copy of this book. And he thought of me on the screen, grabbed it out of her hands and said, he's the favorite. And then it has so much academics, is the world that is surrounded with it affects all of us. The other book, a law, I think it's a book written by a person from the Netherlands. Vessel Vanderbilt. Is by the body keeps it school. And he worked in the Netherlands during World War II and witnessed the slaughter of his name because he didn't obey the Nazi law. In the United States.
Thank you, sir.
I'm hoping it's picking up his plants on the small his office there and it walks very we need thanks PTSD in this so much of the information he collected over 30 years from the these are incidents that you all respect to all right, we'll call the meeting back to order, please. And we're gonna try and move quickly. We got a lot to cover. The next item on the agenda is the VDOT report, which is report only on pages 49 through 50 of your packet. Then school matters, pages 51 through 52. Karen, have you got?
Good evening. Let's see, we have budget supplement requests beginning on page 51, continuing to page 52. I will go through those quickly and answer any questions you may have. National board certification that comes from the state, and that's an incentive that is paid for any of our teachers who are nationally board certified. The ARPA pandemic bonus funds that comes from that's the bonus that comes from the governor's state budget, and that was for SOQ or standards of quality funded positions, which is a little over 50% of our staff are funded that way from the state. And so that covered just about half of the bonuses that we were able to provide which will be provided in December. The other piece I bring to your attention is a moving of funds from instruction to transportation and operations, and that is to cover additional costs that we've incurred since our budget was approved in the spring. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those.
You say you move funds from somewhere to transportation?
Instruction to transportation, yes.
And what you needed?
To transportation.
And what it needed in transportation?
It was, it's to cover what we have forecasted for the remainder of the year. Again, that's a forecast for additional fuel costs. We've had additional employees in the transportation department take advantage of our health insurance, which is additional cost to us. And then a mechanic position that we changed the type of position. This was after we had had our budget approved, and it's to cover the additional salary increase there.
The vehicle, What was that?
No vehicle, it's fuel.
So, okay, no vehicle, okay,
Mhm. Fuel expenses.
I'm good.
How many employees received the bonus roughly?
We gave all of our employees a bonus, which is about 215. The state, from the governor's budget, once the new governor took office and amended it, he provided bonuses for SOQ funded positions, standard of quality, and that's about 112.91 positions. We have 215 employees.
I was just teaching some students at Christ Church today about the approximate sign. Anyway, I would never try to teach Karen anything about math at this point. I thank you and I thank your administration and the school board for recognizing that our administration, our staff, our teachers in the last 2 years have been through a lot. And $1,000 or whatever it turns out to be, and however you were able to find the grant money and get it as affordably as possible and get it done. I really applaud you for coming to us with a needs-based budget year in and year out, and still somehow managing your budget so tightly that when the time is right to do something like that for employees that have done so much for all of us in the last 2 years, you found a way to get that done. And I was hoping that maybe we could do the same for the rest of the county employees. If that's something that this board would consider, but you were exemplary and it really called to our attention, or at least mine, that after the 2 years that people like our treasurer and our commissioner of revenue have also had a rough couple of weeks. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget supplement request form FY 2023-20.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Coons. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Social services updates on page 53 through 54 of your packet. The emergency management update is a report only on page 55 of the packet. Next is the Broad Creek dredging update, and we have a representative from Norton's Yacht Sales, which is located on Broad Creek, just to give us an overview of this.
Hi, my name is Kendall Weber. I am a citizen. I live in Pine Top at 18 Marina Drive. I have my notes on my phone, which I've never done before, so bear with me for a second. I'm here speaking on behalf of the commercial maritime industry that is based in Deltaville, specifically out of the Broad Creek area. For those of you that are unaware, it has been at least 10 plus years since Broad Creek has been dredged. We have experienced significant shoaling and sand silting into the navigable channel, as well as up through the creek to where our businesses are located. Broad Creek is the center of the boating industry for Middlesex County and represents approximately 100 plus direct jobs in our community. We are a multi-million-dollar industry that utilizes Broad Creek as our entrance ramp onto the water highway that lead boats into our marinas, our boat yards, and our boat dealerships. And it's not just our recreational boating industry. We also provide necessary fueling, repair, dockage, unloading of daily catches for watermen that are based out of Middlesex County. I got some oysters this morning. The shoaling of Broad Creek has gotten so bad in the last few years that we have identified this as a serious concern for the health and future of our businesses that are located there. At my marina, we have a charter fleet based out of the marina off of Timberneck Road. And every year we have instances where charters run aground coming in and out of the channel, and they are in the channel. This has only continued to get worse. Couple that with the historic tide shifts you might have noticed in the last couple of weeks that we have been experiencing. Our businesses have had to shift our operating hours and our haul out processes to accommodate being able to get boats in and out of our facilities for storage and maintenance. Just this past week, we actually had a boat run aground dead in the middle of the channel, blocking our access to our fuel dock. Earlier this year, Middlesex County applied for a grant through DRC. This past Wednesday, we received approval for that grant. It is a $336,000 grant with a match of $144,000 from Middlesex County to cover the design, planning, and permitting of a Broad Creek dredge project. Additional funds will be left over after the planning and design and permit. That will also cover the actual cost of the dredging. The $144,000 match is easily accessible through the fully funded county dredge fund, which was created to cover future costs to dredge and maintain creeks throughout the county. So I'm asking you to prioritize this project for the 2023 fiscal budget and ensure that our economy, our jobs, our businesses, our watermen, and our livelihoods will continue to thrive in the county. Thank you.
It's my understanding, we're not ready to appropriate this. We're nowhere near this. Louis Lawrence has been leading this charge and continues to be heavily involved in the scope of this work.
Correct.
And this is really a heads up that there is a critical problem with this huge commercial waterway, and that we need to be prepared to get it dredged as quickly as we can logistically handle, I think, in the spring. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Yes.
And Mr. Chair, I would just add that it's critically important for a marina and all of the businesses and owners there, but it's not just unique to Broad Creek. What we're seeing is the same thing we're seeing on Mill Creek. And so when I am working on the Mill Creek project right next door, it's the same set of problems. That sand is moving. The shorelines are not providing the wind breaks. This is my unprofessional opinion, but I have been out there doing bathymetric surveys for 3 years. The things that are out there that are changing are leaving more sand coming in. And so I'm glad that I'm now on the Public Access Authority working more directly with Louis. Not that he needs my help, but just so that I'm more aware of what our long-term solutions are, because we got the grant money. Thank you to the industry for going out and being a part of that with us and making sure that there's other funds that can come in so that this isn't a $500,000 bill to the county. It's been reduced already. And that's in cooperation with MPPDC that we do things like that. That's what we're doing at Mill Creek, as well as we consider how do we make sure that that boat ramp stays open in light of the kind of sand that is coming in all around. So, and the other good news is we are working with the Public Access Authority to get a more permanent local dredging solution so that we're not coming back multiple times. We actually have a long-term solution regionally where other counties can share in those assets, and we don't have to be dealing with this transactionally every 10 years.
And we're so excited about that.
Yeah, well, and we're so thankful that you've been paying these high personal property taxes to date so that we can afford to help you with these things. I'm really happy about that.
And can I just add something too? Part of included in this grant funding is also some money that's earmarked to do the design, not the build, but the design of some type of jetty or, design, I don't know what you call them, but that will allow for us to continue to reduce the future maintenance requirements as we move forward, because this is going to continue to be an issue forever until sand stops moving, and it's always moving.
And so now you've stolen my update for Mill Creek. It's the same thing. We're going to get the RFP out there this month. If we can have meetings with adjacent homeowners, we'll get that out to the street and have a response in January, and then hopefully have somebody on contract to give us an engineered solution solving the exact same problem just a couple miles upriver. Same thing. And the good news is Louis and MPPDC and their coastal geologists and oceanographers, they get in and they do time-lapse videos and look at where the sand's coming from, and they opine on whether it's wind-driven exclusively, whether it's storm surge, whether it's land subsidence, sea level rise. I mean, it's all of these things, but what it means to our businesses and the recreational people trying to use our waters is we have to be on top of it, and I think Louis' office is, and thank you to the citizens that have been involved with this.
Thank you, Kendall.
Thanks.
Also, before you go anywhere, I think you said the planning commission the other night down sitting on the other end. And what I got to say, we're gonna be getting a lot of good sand out of that. Have you made any plans for the sand that we're gonna, once we judge the channel, we don't want to lose focus on the sand that we have, because that create revenue.
Yes.
And revenue might, cause us to.
Yes.
But
Yeah. So the MPPDC is having continuing discussions about if there's something that they can do with the spoils. And it depends on the type of spoils that come out of the dredging process. So sand spoil is very different than mud spoil, for instance, but that is ongoing discussions on how we can utilize those potentially as a revenue driver.
Give you back to Middlesex.
Yes, I hope so.
And Mr. Chairman, because this does have quite a bit to do with the set aside $750,000 fund that we have for dredging projects, I'm asking Louis and or his staff to attend the June 6th meeting of the Board of Supervisors, our budget budget strategic goals work session.
January
Just
6th.
January 6th, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Because he's got the regional project that he's kicking off, and we may need to consider upping that dredging fund to participate in that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next is Marilyn here, Maryland South or Middlesex Museum update? She must not have been able to make that. Community Services Board, Ms. Hodges.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Linda Hodges, Executive Director of the Community Services Board. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for allowing me to come this evening. And I think, as you know, Dr. Pierock is the Middlesex member of our board of directors. And I appreciate, as I said, the opportunity to speak to you about the services that our agency provides to individuals who are addicted to opioids. This comes out of the opioid abatement that I think there's been a lot of discussion in Virginia about. And if you're not aware, it has to do with the civil suits against the pharmaceuticals and the monies that came out of that and how it's going to be filtered back to the counties. It's my understanding that it should be monies that you'll be receiving over the next 16 years. And so I'm here to offer, I think we have a video. I sent it to you yesterday. So you don't have to hear me speak for 10 minutes. You'll hear some of our staff speak about services we offer specific. While they're getting that, I will just, are you ready to do it?
Yeah, if you are, we just have to make sure we cut them off.
Oh, okay.
Because we're streaming this.
I understand.
Thank you for coming to work.
We need our mics off.
Hello, my name is Valerie Ivino, and throughout my 19 years of employment at the Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck Community Services Board, I've worked with the substance use population, most recently at our Essex Counseling Center. I want to take a few minutes and tell you a bit about our substance use disorder assessments and treatment, focusing primarily on opioid treatment and the way in which we provide these needed services. All of our staff who provide treatment to individuals diagnosed with a substance use disorder have been trained in assessment through the American Society of Addiction Medicine, what we reference as the ASAM. The assessment is completed to determine the appropriate treatment and address their individual needs. It addresses 6 dimensions: exploration of the individual's past and current use with substances and their withdrawal, health history and current physical conditions, their thoughts, emotions, and mental health issues, for example, possible trauma in their lives. It also assesses their readiness and interest in changing, the relationship with relapse or continued use or problems, as well as the individual's recovery and their living situation, that being the people, places, and things that surround them. For this assessment, staff are able to recommend the type and frequency of treatment, which might include medication-assisted treatment or MAT, needs and options. Speaking specifically about opioid users, at the outset of assessing individuals, staff members identify the use of opiates and the type of opiate used, which includes injection users, intravenous users within the past 6 months, and pregnant or parenting females. Opioid users are considered a priority population. The primary initial treatment for opioid users is our agency's Intensive Outpatient Substance Use Treatment Program, or IOP. This is an evidence-based program that offers services in the community. IOP may also include individuals who have recently been discharged from an inpatient facility and need more support than the weekly or biweekly sessions provided in traditional outpatient care. When we say evidence-based program, we refer to treatments such as cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, contingency management, and dialectical behavioral therapy. This program also incorporates individual counseling and group therapy, family psychoeducation, and case management. Our IOP group meets 3 times weekly for 3 hours per session and typically lasts for a duration of 16 weeks. However, throughout the 16-week program, individuals are frequently reassessed, so the length of treatment is ultimately determined by measuring the individual's progress and goal attainment. Weekly self-help meetings, such as NA, are also a requirement of the IOP program. Moreover, this program is both comprehensive and holistic. It is effective because it teaches individuals to ask for help and support and to receive treatment. It assists each person to learn coping and problem-solving skills and to recognize unhealthy thoughts and behaviors. Medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, is an essential part of helping individuals with opioid use disorder to sustain recovery and prevent overdose. When we use the term MAT, we mean that there is the use of medications in combination with counseling and psychosocial support so that individuals receive a whole patient approach. The medications that are used in relation to MAT are buprenorphine, methadone, and naltrexone. Our agency contracts with the local MAT provider to ensure that all treatment options are explored and to provide individuals with needed wraparound services. The MAT treatment approach is tailored to best address the individual's needs. An integral part of our agency's MAT program is the provision of transportation for individuals in need so that they can access both treatment and MAT-related appointments. The transportation is provided by our agency's peer support department. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present today. I'm excited to introduce to you and explain Discovery Place Transitional Program. My name is Ann Davis, and I've been working for the MPNN CSB since 1999. I'm the residential coordinator of the Community-Based Services Department. Discovery is an 8-bed transitional program that serves the people who are diagnosed with serious mental illness or substance use. It has been established since 2006 to help people with discharges from the state hospitals to be able to transition back into the community. Our recovery model focuses on the people's goals and to help them get back on their feet. Staff at Discovery works with all the departments of the agency to apply wraparound services, 24-hour staff supervision to provide structure and support. For the people who have substance use disorder, to include opiates, Discovery provides a therapeutic, sober environment to assist in their recovery and from addiction. We take great pride that we are able to provide such an environment where we can build a peer base of like-minded individuals. Discovery has many moving parts. Residents who work with skills builders to assess needs and to build a plan of their own goals. Staff will assist with teaching the skills needed to be able to live independently with the least amount of interventions. In recent years, due to the opioid epidemic, staff has been working with the medication-assisted treatment to support MAT individuals with opioid addictions. Residents who are working towards their recovery are expected to attend self-help groups and IOP treatment that you have heard from Ms. Iovino. We also provide education on how substances affect your mental health. Examples of successes that we've had at Discovery are many Discovery residents have applied for employment and have been employed with the Middle Peninsula Northern X CSB and still work to this day with us. Something as basic as obtaining a driver's license so they can help themselves. Full-time employment as a hairstylist. Obtaining a GED, then moving on to becoming an individual that's on the dean's list with Rappahannock Community College. Moving to Las Vegas and working with the theater sets of Las Vegas, completing a welding course at RCC. Several have completed the IOP program successfully, obtained full-time painter position, obtained a CDL driver's license, and became a full-time truck driver with a local farm, attended a college for an art degree. A resident's perspective. All employees are helpful. What I've learned here is that everyone has their own issues and everybody is somebody. And the program has taught me patience and tolerance. If not for Discovery, I would be running from the law. A quote from a female resident. It's a family setting. The staff is great and we are well looked out for. They look out for your privacy. Staff are prompt at meeting your needs. They are good caregivers and have saved my life. A perspective from a male. Conclusion, at its core, Discovery is a program to assist individuals recover from substance use and mental health challenges to start anew. Financially, we operate primarily from grant funds. To more effectively serve individuals who need unique residential services in their road to recovery, we respectfully request consideration of additional funds so that we might serve a larger population. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Shirley Fallon. I'm in long-term recovery. I've been employed with this agency for 2.5 years as a peer recovery specialist. My primary responsibility is working with the post-overdose response team, PORT. PORT offers supportive outreach to people within both this agency and our community who are at high risk of opiate overdose and or substance misuse, as well as mental health challenges. PORT provides connection to the community with professionals and non-professional services and the resources available which will assist individuals and their unique needs on their road to recovery. When we say connecting community with care, it means including mental and physical health care, individual and group counseling, inpatient and outpatient treatment, harm reduction options, housing, employment, food, transportation, government services, and more. The Recovery Service Department has 2 locations in our 10-county community, in Warsaw and in Gloucester. Presently, there are 20 peer recovery specialists employed. These individuals are dedicated to offering hope and encouragement. How? By engaging individuals and family members in a recovery-oriented way of living. Peer recovery specialists take on many roles, but one of the most important is our lived experience. Having lived experience, we are able to model that recovery is possible for all. We'd hold the hope for them until they are ready to take it back for themselves. Connection is the key. We need each other to improve a way of survival. Peer-to-peer recovery helps overcome unhealthy cycles of addiction and mental health challenges. By sharing with others living a life in recovery, we are organically and authentically equipped to listen and empathy and compassion and help guide them to break free of the isolation. With awareness of what it was like, and by sharing our stories, we're able to guide others to achieve a healthy pathway to recovery and support health and wellness. Peer support means simply that we help each other solve issues around life challenges, assisting in making better choices, connecting to the right people, getting and giving support. We listen to each other's needs and reach goals. And as always, remember nothing about us without us. We thank you for listening and learning and appreciate any consideration of financial support for this ongoing work. Thank you.
Thank you. I do. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I did want to let you know that The video was done at our psychosocial program by the members of that group. So it was done by people that we serve. Also, Middlesex does have a significant problem with addiction and overdose. It's probably, I would say, middle of the road of the 10 counties we serve. There's some that haven't had any. There's some that have significant amount. I think for opioid overdose, I think it was like 2 overdoses in Middlesex in 2020, which is the last information we have. I also want to point out that we showed 3 different areas of treatment that we provide to the community. But let's not forget about pregnant women who are abusing, not just opioids, but are addicted. And then those children that are served by our early intervention program because their mothers used while they were pregnant. We also provide services to that population as well. So I'll just open it up to any questions you might have. I know it's been a long evening for you guys.
Currently, your organization is receiving funding for this, correct?
We receive funds in a variety of ways, yes. And what we are asking for consideration is to be able to broaden our services, particularly with our residential program, with the Discovery. What we found is that people who've had most success are there for 6 months. Now, let's be clear, that's not an inpatient treatment. If you go to inpatient treatment, that's extraordinarily expensive. You think about a 30-day program. This is a program where you provide structure, where they're not surrounded by people who are abusing, and they have a structure in their life and they go to activities during the day. And we found that our funding provides 3 months of that. But what our experience is that they need 6 months of that to find success. When we looked at our data last year for those who've had success in that program with addiction, it's 6 months. So we would augment with any funding you might award through the opioid abatement, as well as our peer recovery services. That could be broadened because we do have opioid overdose response, and that can certainly be broadened.
If I can add just a little bit for information purposes, realize how this interfaces with the schools. It interfaces with the people that are exiting, being inmates in a number of correctional institutions. It's pointed out in the film, people coming out of the state hospitals, and you keep hearing about the need for beds and so forth. The issue and the background problem with, as you see on TV every single day, about the narcotics coming into the company, particularly fentanyl, and how it's so blended into so much of the activity. This is some of the people that are identified in what's called the discovery process to find people who would like to alter their life because what they found, it has not been an effective life that they lead, and they're hurting themselves and so many others, and they'd like to become more functional citizens. And so this is integrated, but to realize that this CSB is one of 40 CSBs in the Commonwealth and gathered together, and these programs are being shared, and the information gathered in each of these 40 CSBs is being distributed to all of them, and they're working together on a regular basis to continue to improve those programs. It's a piece of the problem, but it is an important piece of the problem. And if you start thinking about in your life and the decisions you make, probably the most important one is how you act. So what are we working with? Behavioral health. How should we act and organize our thinking and teach those that we're in a position to supervise and educate? What should they learn in the process of beginning to survive and interacting with each other? Because I happen to personally believe that we have a joint project of trying to elevate the lives of mankind so that human life expands and flourishes by the interaction of each of us with each other to learn the skills and practice the skills that make our lives as Jehovah intended. So that's my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Matt, you might be able to help me here. Is in the packet, there is a report on the allocation of distributions from settlements that highlights that Middlesex would be or has been the recipient of about $126,000 of settlement money. And
Not yet,
am I looking at the right thing?
not yet. We've received about,
9,000, I believe.
no, we've received 26,000 so far.
Okay, so yeah, what I'm getting at, I'm trying to understand what action, if any, is appropriate now or at some
No.
later date with this organization and those settlement funds.
This,
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, a big supporter of the CSB.
You are.
And I value what they do for our community greatly. But to me, essentially, this is a budget request and a budget item needs to be handled during the budget process, which will be starting in the first of the year. We need to hear from our social services. We need to hear from our sheriff and weigh how you want to expend those opioid settlement funds on the whole rather than piecemeal, in my recommendation or in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand what action is required when, and you've clarified that for me. This is budget cycle.
I would go on to
Yeah.
extend my remarks and say definitely the CSB would be in our minds for some of those funds.
Yeah.
But we'd want to talk to social services and our sheriff's department and consider it as a whole.
Okay.
So
And
it
that's
may be
what-
just a little premature. We'll be inviting you
Right.
back in February.
And I will be here with my hand out probably then as well. But again, that's exactly what the counties are doing. I just wanted an opportunity to talk more about specifically opioid treatment and what we provide. We provide such an array of services. Sometimes what we provide with a specific problem, it gets lost in it. So that's why I appreciate this opportunity this evening to present.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank
for
you so much.
Presenting. The next item is Kevin with the Broadband Authority update, pages 61 through 73 in the packet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors. I'll keep this brief. I know we've had a long night and we have a closed session to get to. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to come to you and express our gratitude for the Board of Supervisors' support. We have just completed our first VATI project with about 180 households in Middlesex that we've gotten access to broadband services. We are embarking on a second VATI grant, which we applied for this year, and that will service almost 1,000 homes. So thank you. We were the first of the 4 counties in this particular grant to finish our project, and we're very happy about that. The other thing I wanted to touch on, because there's a little bit of confusion about what VATI does, what VATI doesn't do. What VATI funds are earmarked for is accessibility. And that's a piece of the issue with broadband. We got to make sure that you have access to it. The other piece of that is affordability. And so we have to look at both of those issues together. One of the things that's come, and I think I've shared it with the board, come about in the last year is the Affordable Connectivity Program. That if you meet a certain income threshold, you can actually get up to $30 off of your broadband bill. Doesn't apply to cable television, but it does apply to broadband. So for certain broadband companies, that could potentially, if you're coming in at that first tier of service, that could potentially cover your entire cost for service. So I just wanted to put that out there so that people are aware of it and would avail themselves of it. I wish VATI did more to address that issue, but unfortunately it doesn't. It really just addresses, let's make sure that people have access and we can work on some of those other issues. And I think that's what the Broadband Authority's mandate is. We have to find solutions to multiple problems that are an impediment to broadband access, and we'll continue to do that. So thank you. Are there any
You've done a
questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Shepherding this along as the Executive Director of the Broadband Authority.
Yeah, and I have to give credit to John Kuntz, he's our chairman, and he's worked since, I guess, 2018 when I came on board, and we've been hitting this thing for a while, and we're starting to see the fruits of our labors, and we have a very active board and proactive board, and we're starting to see things come together. So it's a great thing.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Nugent called and said he was very disappointed in you that you didn't get it to Deer Chase 5 years ago.
Better late than never, Mark. Yeah, he's not there anymore, so he will not benefit.
Kevin, we have some questions for you.
Okay, yeah.
Wait, you go ahead.
Things will be up and running in about 18 months, you think?
Yeah, especially when if you scroll up, Matt, we'll get to this is what you're looking at there is the last Veda project, and that is completed. And I think it's going to be maybe the next slide down. You'll see the larger, yeah, keep on going.
I think it's all of it.
Yeah, it's at the end. This is going to be a project with All Points Broadband to serve a very large swath of the county. You can see, there you go. In the green, that's where this latest project is going to focus its energy. And so, yes, to answer your question, Wayne, about the timeline, it is 18 months. And we're going to see not a lot of, well, actually, we have seen activity. If you've seen the folks doing the poll surveys along
Saw them
33.
doing testing a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's a company called Biari, and they're going out here, they're looking at the poles, making sure that they can accommodate whatever infrastructure that will be hung on the poles. And keep in mind, this is a cooperative effort with Dominion Energy. They're putting in that middle mile fiber to control their grid, and we're kind of reaping the benefit of that and realizing some cost savings because of it. But what's probably going to happen based on my conversations with DHCD and our partner at All Points is they're probably going to build up 20, 30 miles because these contractors, they want to be able to get a significant amount and roll with it. And so we're going to see no activity, and then we're going to see a bunch. But yeah, so far, everything is on schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I got a quick question. We have several pages here. It looks like people's address and it says servable. What exactly is that?
So basically just that they have the ability now to subscribe. They're not mandated to, obviously they don't have to, but they didn't have the ability before, but now they can. This is a list that's kind of grown, and I haven't shared it with the board over the months, but we've been filling these in as we went, as we started to light up different communities. And what happened with this project, which is what's probably going to happen to the next project, is there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and then all of a sudden they all start turning green almost at once. And so for anybody that lives inside those addresses, they have access to it.
And would you speak briefly to the mix, if you will, of, is this brand new people that are coming on with broadband that never had service before? And is there a percentage of that? And then I would assume there's also a percentage of people that want to switch based on the requirements to do that. Do you have any figures on that, just out of fun?
Sure. One of the criteria for submitting a VEDI application is you don't have meaningful access to broadband.
Okay.
So this is not I mean, it'd be nice if we had someone coming in to provide more robust competition, but that's not really what this is earmarked for. It's more so for people who lack any meaningful access. And so all those addresses previously had none.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And also, if you're in the Atlantic broadband area, you cannot get this, right? Or can you? Otherwise, if you have Atlantic broadband for service. Or is there any type of law,
Well, when you talk about spending Department of Housing Community Development dollars, you have to spend those in a place where you don't have an incumbent provider, because we go through this rigorous process where they can challenge you if you're trying to encroach in their existing service area. So we had to be mindful of that. And in fact, some other localities have had their grants thrown out because they were doing just that. They were more cooperative. And what they want to do is make sure their money goes toward really the people who don't have anything. May that become a competitive organization at some point? It could. Once they get a foothold here, there's nothing to say that they can't spend their own dollar to reach some of those other people or perhaps compete, but that's a little far down the road.
right? Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, on the screen we're looking at, are the areas in green served by wireless or is that hard water?
This will all be fiber to the home. And so one of the questions that came up, John and I were talking during the break. Fiber to the home is a little bit different than what we're used to with coax and hybrid fiber coax with our traditional cable systems. One of the things is fiber to the home does not offer traditional cable television. They're working on new technology, like, so I've heard things called IPTV. I think streaming services, like, most people are converting to. So there will be a product at some point. But the other piece of that is because it's a fiber to the home, you're probably not going to go down to Walmart and grab a fiber to the home modem off the shelf. I mean, hopefully we'll get there. So it's going to be a little bit different than what people are used to. But All Points is a company that's been around for a while. And so hopefully we'll work through those issues as they come up. It's going to be a good product. I mean, with fiber, you can scale that to the moon and back. So definitely future proof.
So if you got breeze line, you basically can't get all fiber.
Well, no, not exactly. In some places that we did this VADI grant with BreezeLine, which was the first one, they use fiber to the home. In other places, it made more sense because of the way that their physical plant was configured, that they would actually still use some coax. And so you see a mix with BreezeLine because they've been here so long. So a lot of their stuff is older, and it's a hodgepodge of newer and older technology. But with All Points coming in, it's brand new, all brand new infrastructure.
Kevin, this is something that maybe you or John can answer, but for property owners that have extremely long driveways and the cost to get out to the road to access the fiber, are there programs available for them to participate in, or is that cost borne totally by the property owner to get out to the road?
Well, when it comes to the VADI projects, the providers have to get them connected regardless of how long their driveways are. I think where we're going to have to focus our energies post VADI, and once we start, and we've already started working with BreezeLine to identify these broadband deserts that they left behind, we're going to have to figure out a way to get those folks. There is a program called LECAP, which is the line extension program, which will help offset some of those costs to get people. But if there are people in the VADI project, then that they forego that cost. They don't need to pay that.
Other questions? Thanks so much, Kevin. Good work.
Thank you.
Next is Charlie with county engineer updates, and there is a revised resolution that was handed out.
Yes, so there is in your packet, it replaces page 75, 74 and 75. Matt, do you know if Mark's gonna be joining us? Do you know if Mark is gonna be joining us?
Or
He said he would join by Zoom since he couldn't be here.
he's on Zoom now. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Wonderful. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in front of you have a revised resolution. Before I get started, Ms. Heather, have you had an opportunity to I think this is revision 4?
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, and my understanding is I'm gonna let Mr. Flynn speak to it. I think he has a 5th revision. So I think it's a moving target right now, but Mark can speak to that.
Yeah, Mark's on.
And members of the board, if you're ready for me, I can very briefly. The reason you have the 4th version now is that this has had a lot of back and forth with the Department of Aviation to make sure to get the language that the department wanted in order to avoid having to acquire a navigation easement from the one property in particular, but a few others too. And one of the things this week that the Department of Aviation has asked for is that it will want an agreement saying what is in this resolution. So it struck me that this afternoon, sorry to say, this afternoon, that it'll be more efficient to go ahead and add to this resolution, be it further resolved that the chairman and the county administrator are authorized and directed to execute any agreement or other documents necessary to carry out this resolution. Just that, it simply gives you all authority to sign an agreement that is consistent with this resolution. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. And with Ms. Heather's concurrence, I agree with that as well. So we're looking for a motion, or is that right?
Quick question, and our county attorney and Mark Flynn and yourself all in step on this resolution, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
No, I would not, I would characterize it this way. It's not that I'm not in step, but I guess, I don't know if there are questions related that would be best suited for closed session. Mark, what were your thinkings on that?
Yeah, there are some issues related to the runway protection zone, the properties to the south of the airport. And they don't affect whether I recommend the board adopt this resolution. I think that very much the board should adopt the resolution. But even after the resolution is adopted and agreement with DOAV is entered into, there will be certain issues that'll still be outstanding.
Okay.
And so not regarding this resolution, but following it would probably be useful in closed session for me to go into further detail on those issues.
Thank you, Mark. That was clarification. So I've reviewed the resolution, and I did not have any changes for the changes I've had. Mark and I've already worked through.
Okay, with that being said, I'll make a motion for approving resolution R 2022-15.
I'll second it.
Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Jesse. Any further discussion?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for clarification purposes, Mark, were you with the adoption of the resolution, would that motion include any additional agreements as required with the State Department? Was that what you were thinking?
Yes, that would be adding a last paragraph to it again, that the chairman and county administrator are hereby authorized and directed to execute all documents with the Department of Aviation necessary to carry out this resolution.
Thank you. So, Mr. Harris, is that an agreement, the amendment, the resolution with that addition?
Yes, I'll make that revision.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
and Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Right. Ken, you are next on the agenda for a sewer project update. And Charlie has also supplemented our packet with a connection fee schedule.
Yes,
Good to see you, Ken.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ken Turner with Timmons Group. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation on some updates to the sewer program as it is progressing. Since I last presented, I've gone through and worked with Heather and staff on some of the questions that were posed at a prior board meeting. During this presentation, I'm going to talk about updates to topping, some of the issues that you previously approved, Hartfield updates, Saluda updates, where we are with environmental permitting, summary of the fundings, Deltaville overview, project cost summary, project cost and funding charts, and project schedules as well. This is an exhibit that shows the topping service area. The last action that the board took was to approve additional design fees and PER work to move the force main to the other side of the road as requested by HRSD. And that was from the terminal pump station over near the airport up to Locust Grove Road. Subsequent to that action, we had a monthly coordination meeting with HRSD, at which time they indicated their consultant, Kimberly Horn, was not going to do the design to extend the force main from General Puller Highway down to Locust Grove Road. County staff agreed that that would be something that would be added to this contract. So that's something that we're working on, and I have a proposal that I've submitted for those additional survey and design services and environmental review. So the scope of work has again changed based on some requests by HRSD and approved by the county staff to extend the force main alignment from Locust Grove Road all the way up to General Puller Highway and to align with the configuration that HRSD is proposing to construct. Additional updates for topping. So I just kind of went over that. We talked about the county's request to relocate the force main, HRSD and county agreement to extend the topping, additional survey. We're going to have to revise the preliminary design plans that are underway, and we are also going to have to revise the pump station layout as requested by HRSD. Then once we get that done, the county and HRSD will review the plans, provide comments, and DEQ has approved the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund application that was submitted last year for funding of this project. And I don't know what the time frame is for the county to close on that. We need to get bids in, and then we'll move forward with the closing of the construction loan. So next slide. We'll have some additional detail on this project to date. The total design cost so far is $375,000. The initial $312,000, which was included in the original scope and fee, and then the $63,000 of additional services that were previously approved. We're anticipating easement costs of about $100,000 to bring the total and the total construction cost for topping. Our estimate for that is $3.2 million. The tentative schedule, we are updating the survey this month and extending that all the way up to General Puller Highway. We'll have updated plans to the county and HRSD January of next year. We're shooting for final plans in the project manual in April and advertise a project for construction in July of next year with an estimated construction timeframe of 23 months. An update on Hartfield. We are proposing a low pressure system on both sides of General Puller Highway, extending from the YMCA up past Wood Brothers Road, and then just locally there in Hartfield from Hartfield Village down to the intersection where the road breaks off and goes across the Piankatank River. We'll have a crossing of the General Puller Highway at Wood Brothers Road to convey the flow from Hartfield Village and the businesses on the opposite side of the road station, which is all going to be constructed on Wood Brothers Road. And that will be one jack and bore crossing of General Puller Highway instead of crossing with every lateral that we have from the opposite side of the road. So that's why we have the parallel systems along General Puller Highway.
Hold on one sec. Mark, you need to mute your mic at home, please.
Recently authorized to proceed with that. We have received preliminary evaluation of the hydraulic analysis and sizing of the force mains in Hartfield. They're going to be small diameter force mains. Hopefully we can locate them within the right of way, but in the event that there are too many utilities or the right of way gets too narrow, we've allocated $75,000 for some easement acquisition. To date, the design cost is $210,000 and our estimated construction cost is $1.55 million. And then in addition to that, Middlesex County's contribution to the HRSD Hartfield Pump Station is $330,000. And the Hartfield Pump Station project has been awarded, but I don't believe construction has started yet. And that's going to be on Wood Brothers Road. And they'll extend the gravity sewer up to the intersection of Wood Brothers Road and General Puller Highway, which would be a connection point for the low pressure system. And then HRSD will have to extend from Parsons Lane to extend the Deltaville force main down General Puller Highway and tie into that same manhole at Wood Brothers Street.
Ken, if I could ask you a quick question, do you know what the bids came in for the Hartfield pump station? Ballpark, just shy of $4 million.
Yeah, I believe Jeremiah presented that a few months ago. And Todd.
So that sounds a lot more interesting. Just highlighting this, not to embarrass highlight, but just to highlight this, our contribution towards the cost of that pump station is $330,000. That's our proportionate share. We saved a considerable amount of money by not having to build a couple of different pump stations, as the previous PER had suggested. When we learned that HRSD needed a booster station, in a sense, we were able to piggyback and acquire some capacity within that station. So we're saving a good deal of cost for that.
And that project also includes some wet weather equalization underground storage, so that in the event that they have more flow than the pump station can handle, they can store it on site underground and then repump it after the rain subsides. My next update is for the Saluda low pressure system. Essentially, we're going to start here from the intersection of General Puller and Gloucester, extend up General Puller to cross Route 17 and provide service to the Food Lion, to the school, the building supply, the Dollar Tree, residents and businesses that front General Puller Highway down to Gloucester Road. And then we'll run up Gloucester Road up to the Hardys and provide services to the residents and businesses that directly front Gloucester Road. And then I was recently informed that there was previously approved a 100 unit development behind the assisted living facility on Gloucester Road, and we need to include that into our modeling. So we need to redo our modeling to provide capacity for that additional flow when that development comes to fruition. Summary of some of the costs and schedule for Saluda. The PER is in progress. We received some preliminary information on the hydraulic analysis recently. We were summarizing the findings, and then I found out that we need to redo those to incorporate the 100 unit development that is being proposed here in Saluda that was previously approved by the planning department. The total for the estimated project cost so far design, we're at $264,000. We're allocating $175,000 for easement acquisition for total project cost of about $2.5 million. We're expecting to submit the PER to the county this month and have plans and specifications ready to advertise in August of next year. And then we will open bids late 2023, and we estimate the construction timeframe to be approximately 15 months to complete. As far as environmental assessments concerned, we were working with DEQ, and Mike Crocker recommended that we recycle the environmental assessment that was done for the water system, since many of these sewer lines are following the same corridors and are occupying similar portions of the right-of-way along county roads. That has been submitted to DEQ for topping Deltaville and Hartfield. There is some additional environmental review needed in Saluda, and we estimate that cost will be about $75,000. And it's included in the project design fees that we've submitted to the county. So for a summary of the funding on the next slide, we have submitted 4 applications to DEQ under the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. We've received approval from DEQ that topping was approved for $2.5 million. I believe the State Water Control Board recently met in November to determine who else would be eligible for that. Has the county heard anything from DEQ on the other 3 applications that were submitted in July for Deltaville, Hartfield, and Saluda? Good.
They're anticipating, I think, letting people know in February, February.
Yeah, the initial response was we should know something by the end of February, but probably by March. So the closing period is December 15th.
Okay.
So we got ours and hopefully we're at the top of the stack.
Yeah. Well, that's for ARPA. That's the next one.
Same with grants.
Okay. All right.
Same thing. We submitted them at the same time.
All
Yeah,
right.
we'll find out about the direct appropriation grants, which I'm gonna cover under my
Yeah.
report.
Yeah.
in
I
March.
saw that.
While
later.
we're on the slide, Ken, if I can, because we did have a question that was a very good question about the 1,000 grinder pumps at 4.25 million requested under the ARPA grant. Our county engineer actually talked me into this one. He thought it would be a very good idea to submit a grant to help homeowners pay the cost of the E1 or grinder pumps, along with the cost to connect the home. Charlie, do you want to talk a little bit about that grant while we've got the slide up?
Yeah, and basically we're trying to minimize the financial impact to the community. So we thought that if the money's available, and talking with DEQ and the various grants that they had presented, they said that we qualified and or the grinders as part of the project qualify for funding, either through grant or loan. So we pursued that avenue. We've also included or requested money as part of that grant to assist the homeowner in decommissioning their existing drain field and or septic system. So that 4.25 covers the cost of the installation of the grinder pump and decommissioning of their existing system.
So if it's successful in receiving that grant, we'll incorporate that into our town hall meetings and discussions when we're out recruiting connections. The first 1,000 have their grinder pump paid for by ARPA, potentially, if we're successful getting that grant.
And the time frame for receiving that clarification from DEQ is March of next year.
Quick question, and that grant money availability, is that based on any income level of whoever's trying to get hooked on to the program?
All federal funds have strings attached and they are based on median household income, financial stability, and several other factors. I don't know all of the grading factors for the ARPA funding that's flowing through DEQ, but yes, just like the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, there are questionnaires that DEQ goes through and answers for each application relative to the disposition of the financial stability, the community, the median household income for each application in each county.
And would the county assist in that application process, Mr. Walker?
Absolutely. And just to highlight another aspect of our grant ask, we don't anticipate being successful in receiving all of the requested amounts, but better to ask for a little bit more and then be reduced than ask for less and to be reduced again. So we were pretty ambitious in our ask. Given the amount of money the state has statewide left in the different programs and pots, and I'll show you that in a moment during my report, we'll be lucky if we get half of what we requested here. We'll be very lucky.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
And then with the Clean Water Revolving Loan Funds, there is the ability to adjust those loan applications to meet other funding windfalls. So the funding is somewhat of a moving target with respect to how much we'll get from ARPA and how much we'll need to borrow in other funding sources that we're pursuing.
I want to clarify Don's question because we might be a little bit misaligned. I interpreted Don's question as being, would we make funding for the grinder pump and the decommissioning available based on meeting certain income criteria at the individual home? What I think you answered was, does the Clean Water Revolving Loan Act take into account the entire community economic status, which the answer to that is yes, but that's a different question and a different answer, I think.
Let me try to answer it this way, Lud, if I understand it correctly. When the Water Authority was successful in getting the grant and the very low interest loan through
USDA.
Thank you, USDA. I can't believe I forgot that already. It was based on the demographic data of Deltaville. We qualified for the poverty rate given the demographic data. Yeah. They didn't nail down and drill down to property specific. It was the community as a whole based on the census tract data. I will follow up with DEQ to make sure that's how they're doing.
Okay, I think I had misinterpreted the question and the answer. I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, no, did that answer your question, Don?
Currently, yeah.
Okay. We'll have probably more on the
you'll have
January
a-
6th meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
And to go into a little bit more detail with respect to Deltaville, originally I had an aggressive schedule to do the entire Deltaville area at a pretty hefty cost, realizing that the interest rates were going to go up. But Matt reminded me that I was not living within the means of the county's fiscal ability. So we have broken Deltaville up into 3 phases, which includes Stingray Point, General Puller Highway, the terminal force main behind Deltaville Market, and then the force main up to Parsons Lane, which is the first phase. That will include service to anyone who has a water meter along General Puller Highway or in Stingray Point. The force main downstream of the terminal pump station will not be eligible for customers to connect to. That will be a HRSD interceptor force main, and all connections need to come through a county collection system that has a water service that's served by a community water system with a water meter. So phase 2 will be Stowe Point in the areas on that side of General Puller Highway, and phase 3 will be Timberneck in the areas north of General Puller Highway. So that's the way we have broken down these 3 phases of Deltaville. This is a little bit different. It was in the final PER. We've kind of sliced and diced this several different ways, but I feel this would be the most timely and cost-effective way to move forward with system deployment in Deltaville. Revised layout of the design cost for the Deltaville low-pressure system on the next slide is included. So phase 1 would cost about $600,000 to design. Phase 2 and 3 would be about $500,000 for a total cost of all 3 of about $1.6 million over time. The next slide has additional information on Deltaville. We've updated the construction cost. The original estimate we had of around $13 million was based on the bid prices that we received for the water system for similar size pipe and installation methods. Since those bids have been received statewide, there's been at least a 12.5% increase in construction cost, and projecting that forward for when the project will be advertised. We've come up with a revised median construction cost of about $18 million for Deltaville. And then we've also included the $4.25 million for grinder pump stations throughout the county. So we've thrown this $4.25 million in that we have applied for ARPA funds in. And then roadway restoration, we're looking at $1.5 million for that. Subsequent to the last meeting, we dug into the easement needs a little bit more and had a meeting with VDOT. Realizing that when the water system was built, not all of the water pipe could go inside the right of way or in easements, and some of that was pushed out into General Puller Highway and other roadways in the county. So we had a meeting with VDOT down the street, or Charlie and Matt did last month, and we got a thumbs up that there's a potential for some of these assets to be constructed within the roadway. So we've incorporated an exhibit that shows how many, the limits of where we think we're going to be in the roadway to Matt and Charlie, and an estimated roadway restoration cost of approximately $1.5 million. And that's because these right-of-ways weren't designed to support water and sewer infrastructure and the other underground utilities that are being deployed throughout the county.
And if I could elaborate on that briefly, Ken. One of the reasons we requested that is some of the condition of Deltaville roads, some of them are a little more than chip and tar. They're in the state system, but you don't have a thick layer of asphalt. So the cost of repairing that road is negligible compared to impacting people's front yards. In some cases, a very small amount of front yard. On top of that, we have the consideration that we're probably going to dictate to the bidder, unless we change our mind for whatever reason, that they directional bore all of Deltaville, or as much of it as practicable. We learned in the water authority's endeavor down at Deltaville that it's just not practical to open cut and install in Deltaville because the community has been built up around not having utilities. So to go back in and try to force fit and open cut everything was just going to be too impactful. The winning contractor chose by himself to directional bore almost the entirety of the service laterals coming off the mains. Given the size and diameter of our sewer lines, we believe that it's going to be more practical just to bid this out as a directional bore, directional drill event, which is a lot less impactful to pavement. You don't have to open cut but one hole and drill to another. So you're not disturbing the pavement, even when it is just chip and tar. VDOT was preliminarily, I won't say optimistic because they never want utilities under the pavement, but we were given some very positive initial feedback. What we owe VDOT now is we've got to drill down into the design, line segment by line segment, road by road, and demonstrate where we think we need to be under the pavement. And in the interest of full transparency, we have an ulterior motive for wanting to be under the pavement that we shared with VDOT as well. That is, if someone's not connected to the water system and they're operating a private well, we cannot be within 50 feet of a private well with our sewer line without either sleeving the sewer line or condemning that well and compelling that applicant to go on the water system. We do not want to do that. Let me repeat that. We do not want to do that. We never want to be in the business of forcing anybody on the water or sewer. We wanted to keep it completely voluntary. And with that, VDOT was very, very accommodating. They said they would work with us. And if we can do that, we'll save a considerable amount on right-of-way expenses, not only in cost, but in staff time. I just wanted to.
That's true. And if I could add to that as well, I was in a meeting this morning with VDOT and HRSD, and HRSD was presenting their case to route piping in the roadway. And VDOT was accommodating, although we still have to follow the process of explaining why and what's the reasoning for putting in the roadway versus in the right of way. And as Matt stated, and I mentioned in the meeting this morning, I said there's locations where when they walk up their front door, they'll be stepping into our trench. So we don't want to create that environment. So we'd rather much be out in the road, out of the way. And also is the issue with wells. HRSD, when we first started talking about this, it had to deal with the volunteer fire department at Twiggs Ferry. And I recommended or suggested to HRSD, you have three options. You can pay the $10,000 to connect them, take the well out of service. You can sleeve your pipe or you can relocate your pipe. It's your choice.
Or relocate their well.
Yeah, or drill a new well. So there was that fourth option. That's true. So they said they had no issue with paying the subscription fee, but I also said, be prepared that they'll ask for you to pay for their bill for eternity. They had no issue with paying the subscription fee, but they didn't want to pay their bill for eternity. So.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
Elaborate.
It's all good. The next slide that's up on the screen is the total revised initial low pressure system phasing and cost estimates. In addition to looking at the roadway construction, we were tasked with looking at how many easements we thought would be required and the associated cost. So subsequent to that meeting, I worked with Heather and county staff. We identified 18 private roads in Deltaville that are either owned by individuals or HOAs or entities which are no longer in existence or heirs to entities which have gone defunct or none of the above. And Heather went through this with the water system and has a good understanding of which ones will be easy to work with, which ones will be a little bit more difficult to work with. And going through those 18 private roads, we were able to eliminate over 200 easements by incorporating a single easement agreement with some of the Stingray Point homeowners associations or Stowe Point homeowners association. So that was a positive. And some of those folks have indicated that they're willing to give us the easement for the entire HOA at no cost, which is a significant cost savings. And then Heather went on to further explain that we can don't have to do appraisals for all of the parcels. We can do bars reports, which are much more cost effective, and that the county would assist with some of the research. And so we have been able to whittle down the cost that we initially shot across the bow to the county some time ago, which was greatly in excess of $3 million. So we've sharpened our pencil a little bit and feel like we've gotten a better understanding of the number of easements and which ones we can work with the residents on. And then in addition, the county wants to deploy this agreement, you know, that if you sign up for the sewer, you'll give us an easement, then, but there's still a lot of property owners who are not going to be served by the sewer system that will oppose the project or want to be compensated for easements across their property. So we've already talked about the DEQ and Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund and the ARPA grant applications. They've already been submitted. An overview for Delta will submitted the PER in March of 2022. We've had a discussion with VDOT. Applications are complete, finalizing projected cost for county determination on whether or not to proceed with this project. We have the estimated project cost here and then the tentative schedule. Come up with the final project cost, work on design in 2023, advertised for bid in January 2024. And we're assuming 24 months of construction to get the Deltaville system up and running in a phased approach. The next slide shows a summary of the PER, the design cost, easement acquisition, and construction cost, as well as the county contributions to some of the HRSD projects and the cost for the 1,000 grinder pumps. So when you tally all that up, the number on the bottom right is the total all-in cost for sewer deployment and topping Hartfield, Saluda, and Deltaville, including the cost to purchase the 1,000 grinder pumps, the additional easement costs that we're looking at, as well as the roadway restoration costs for a total sewer deployment system cost of a little bit north of $41 million.
And I should elaborate a little bit more on the grinder pumps. That is if we're successful in getting the grant. If we're not successful in getting the grant, the homeowner would be expected to cover those costs.
The next slide includes additional breakdown. I think it's a little bit redundant, but it shows what the project cost summary is, and it also provides a summary of what we've applied for with loans and grants through Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, the Sewer Connect Collection System Program, and the Straight Line Pipe Replacement Program with DEQ. So we have an estimated cost of about $41 million, and we've applied for $44.7 million in loans and grants. So once we get a determination from DEQ on how much we will be awarded for loans and grants, we'll be able to make a more educated decision on how we want to move forward with sewer system deployment in the county. The final slide is a schedule that shows the design and construction timeframes that we're looking at for Deltaville, Saluda, Hartfield, and Topping. Topping is going to go first. That one's currently under design. Hartfield and Saluda are pretty small projects compared to Deltaville, and Deltaville will take until 2026 to complete. And that's summarized in the schedule that you see on your screen.
During the last coordination call, has HRC slipped on their project completion time? They were at January 2025, I think.
Yeah, with the comments to go back to VDOT and look at getting in the roadway, which is something that the county pursued. I think that will push their schedule out a little bit more, but I'm not privy to the scheduling information that Kimberly Horn shares with HRSD.
I have not heard anything official, but based on just what I've seen across my email streams, I'm thinking they're looking at least June 2025. Maybe further than that. All right.
And I'll talk to Scott Funk informally. He's like, yeah, we're behind schedule, but
I think by the time they get something out to bid, they're going to be looking at December 2025, January 2026. That's just my estimate.
So that's the final slide I have to kind of summarize the design, construction, scheduling, funding, and cost for the sewer system deployment in Delta. Go back to the question slide, please. Those other ones were just extra slides to talk about in the event that someone had questions about a particular sewer system deployment area. But with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Not a question, just a compliment. I really appreciate the slides and how they show sort of how things are going to play out. And then if monthly or quarterly, if we see changes, then we update them and explain them at the time. But now at least the public can see in one place a very succinct presentation of our progress. So thank you to the administration and everybody that contributed to that.
And there was a question about the prior opinion of probable cost. That has been updated with these numbers that reflect the latest median cost. When we do cost estimates based on very preliminary stuff, we go plus or minus 20%. So these costs are the median cost.
And Charlie, just want to make sure that we answer all three questions that were presented during the public comment period. I think you've explained the grinder pumps appearing in both the construction cost and in the grant application, in that the original financial plan was not for the county to incur the cost of the grinder pumps or the decommissioning. We would like to have that as an incentive, and it seems like it would be an attractive investment for the state in that we are in a dangerous zone with our proximity of the water table, the proximity of the Chesapeake Bay, and the pristine Tank River, all those things. Hopefully they will see that this would be a wise investment. The next question was, when will the county know what grants are given? And I don't know if we know the answer to that.
March.
March?
March for the other ones. I'm on that.
Okay, awesome. And I think you just answered the question about probable cost.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I got just one question. When is HRSD gonna start leaving from Hartfield to go across the pit tank?
Jeremiah typically gets up in front of you to provide updates on the progress of the overall HRSD projects. And in some recent discussions, and then most recently in the meeting that Charlie had with VDOT today, there was a request to revise the design that Kimley Horn is doing to get back into the median where we originally were. So I think that's going to push the schedule back. The schedule for crossing the Pianca Tank, I think, is going to be late 2025, early 2026.
Yeah, that all that's going to be back. That's not even designed yet.
Well, then that confirms my estimate. And Reggie, we're going to have Jeremiah and other staff potentially from HRSD here at our January 6th meeting when we're talking about the sewer project as a whole, including HRSD's components.
Thank you, Ken.
I have one other question, and I'm not sure, I don't think this was with yours. This wastewater collection system proposed connection fees? Okay, then I'll wait.
That's a great segue, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Good job.
Charlie, you want to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, on page 100, you have a tentative schedule that's been laid out by Bay Design. Last meeting, we had said that they had their teams mobilized. They have done all the preliminary
I
work.
think they want to talk about the connection fees next, Charlie.
Oh.
Yeah. That was handed out to them this evening in their.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There it is.
Yep.
I'm sorry. My fault. No, I don't. It's on page, what page is that on?
It was a handout.
It was a handout,
Okay.
supplemental.
All right, yeah, that was my apology. I was late getting it to Miss Tammy Lynn. What you have there, gentlemen, is a listing of fees and the culmination of the research that I've done with the other counties and or townships with regards to everywhere that HRSD has a system, or what I call their tentacles, wherever they've got piping and wherever they're charging. And looking at those numbers, you'll see that the average subscription fee is $10,000 to $12,000. Also, it increases exponentially with the size of the piping. Matt and I kicked it around. I presented a lot of different information. In fact, to his credit, he changed it. We are recommending or suggesting a $10,000 subscription fee. Connection fee, I'm sorry. I had it at 12. We don't have subscription fees. Anyway, so to Matt's credit, we wanted to stay within reason in the same framework as the water authority with regards to connection fees. So we're recommending that the connection fee be at 10,000 and accept those exponential increase in pipe size, meter size to accommodate the sewer system.
Who makes that decision?
Which-
Is that part of the county and the resident or business, whether they need 3/4 inch or 3 inch?
It's up to the business and or property owner.
Okay.
We'll give property owners some guidance there because the typical residential connection is 3/4.
Yes,
Whereas Grays Point Campground would probably be a 3 inch.
Okay.
Grace
Okay.
Point is a 3 inch.
Right. It's a 3 inch meter. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, just for my novice understanding, I see, and this is a pretty nice chart here that you did based on some of the other counties.
You ought to see it in color.
Yeah, I bet. Just a quick question. I noticed that, and as you get down to the larger size piping, and I'll use 3 inch as an example. The cost for that would be $124. We match up with Matthews at $124 and King William at $124. However, West Point, Gloucester, and Surrey are at a significant lower amount, 50,000 versus 124. Can you explain what the differences is between the counties there, or is that?
In talking with, in Gloucester, for instance, Brian Boyle, they set their own rates, and it's based on the type. If it's zoned industrial, everybody's going to get minimum 1 inch up to a 6 inch. Now, there were other meters that are included. All this information came from HRSD and these other entities. They went up to 6 inches. The paper mill in West Point has a 6 inch meter. That's $290,000. But we would never have a 4, 5, or 6 inch meter, so I didn't include that information here.
My question was, why is it such a vast difference between Surrey, West Point, and Gloucester? Because looking at the way the numbers work, and at first I said, well, okay, must be because of the size of the population of the county, but that doesn't play out with a couple of these. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. But that was a consideration. The other thing is because they have such a small, well, how to rephrase this? They're not as industrious as, say, a West Point or a King and Queen. They don't have a lot of businesses. So the ones that they do have, they try not to penalize them by saying you're going to pay 3 times as much as
Okay.
anybody else because I was not able to tell town manager, but I did gather in their website and that they listed.
I can take a stab at it too, Don. It's probably because that's what they wanted them to be. The
Okay.
board made the decision that that's what the connection fee should be based on the economics that they had at hand. Just as y'all will tonight, potentially approve connection fees based on our economics and different conditions. There could be a number of factors. Sometimes if you have an existing water system that's fully functional, you've got income streaming already, you've got cash flow, you can be a little more generous on connection fees to encourage more connection because you're not trying to pay for the system or reimburse yourself for a system you just deployed. Does that make sense? Like some of those systems may have been in place since the late 60s.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
One other item, if the board's not comfortable approving these connection fees tonight, that's fine. We wanted to get them in front of you. And the mindset that Charlie and I have moving forward with all this, and you saw a little bit of it with Ken's presentation, we're anticipating the time when we're in front of the public and town hall meetings, talking to people about connecting. Well, one of the first things they're going to want to know is what's it going to cost me? And we can't answer that until the board takes action on a connection fee schedule. Even if you change it 3 months from now, when we get into the thick of it, when we know how much grants we have, when we know costs and we maybe bid the project 9 months from then, you can change your connection fees, but adopt something initially, either this month or maybe next month. So we have that piece of the puzzle. So when we do go to the town hall meetings, we'll be able to answer questions. Because people are asking, how much is it going to cost to connect? We haven't made that determination yet, so.
So whose recommendation is the 10, 20, 35, 60, 124 that matches Matthews and King William and Accomack?
That's our
That's
recommendation.
that's your engineering office? Okay. Yeah, and you with your water experience and everything else, that's also your recommendation. Okay, thank you.
We can work this, approve it, or we can wait until next month. I'm aware that we need to have a closed session. We also have a 7 o'clock public hearing. And so what I suggest we do is we defer this until next month. We go to a closed session and get that work done. And then we'll have our 7 o'clock public hearing and we'll complete the other agenda items after that.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I move we move into closed session. Is that what you're looking for? Or
Yes. Well, Heather's got to
Yeah,
make the.
thank you, Mr. Coons. If I could expand on that. So, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion from the board to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711 A3 and for A7. This is for the discussion about the acquisition of and or the disposition of real property for a public purpose, where a discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the public body, and for consultation with legal counsel about said property and consultation with legal counsel about the contractual requirements of the airport realignment project.
so moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Kuntz. Second by Mr. Jesse. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
aye.
Mr. Coates,
Aye.
Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. And